Hello, everybody, and welcome to our director's commentary for the first episode of the Lazarus Expedition. If you've not seen one of these before, I'm just going to talk about what's going on in the game from the DM's point of view. We might skip ahead a little bit, we might not. We'll see. So,
hello, everybody,
starting us
and
off,
welcome to the very first episode.
I'm going to lower the volume here for a moment while I talk over them. This is the very beginning of our campaign. Our characters are starting washed up on a beach after a shipwreck, and we're playing 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons, and we're playing a shortish campaign that's supposed to be 10 to 15 sessions in the Age of Heroes. Now, there's a lot of reasons to make these early decisions. We're playing 5th edition because this group has played together before, and we wanted to play a bunch more D&D in the future, but we'd only played 2nd edition together as a group. And before we launched into, a nice long marathon of 2nd edition campaigns, which I absolutely love, I wanted to make sure all of our players had experience with 5th edition as well, because it's a popular game system and it does suit some of these early age campaigns, and I think we might be doing some early age campaigns. And I wanted to make sure all of our players had a good sense of what we were doing and could make a good informed decision on what game systems we should use going forward. So that's why we picked a short campaign that would be 5th edition. That's why we're here. As for our players washing up on the beach, well, right now, you'll see our characters are making con saves to see who wakes up first. And this is sort of important. We're washing up on the beach because I wanted to come into the campaign with a little bit of, we're starting, here we are, we're in the middle of things. We're not really going to do a lot of setup. We're not really going to do a lot of, everyone's hanging out in the tavern together. We wanted sort of an immediate jump into the action.
Rolling our con saves. I would like us to also
and I see Vasher gets the highest con save, so he's going to wake up first. The reason that they are even having to wake up on the beach, though, is because the whole point of this campaign is that they are the lackeys who have survived a shipwreck that was, destined for higher level characters. I wanted us to have a really cool, big goal and a really big mission, but I wanted us to start at lower levels. So saying you're part of this bigger expedition of cooler people who are supposed to solve this big problem, but they all die and you're the lackeys who are left over, puts us in a position where we get to start at low levels but still have a pretty high level objective, and that gives us some room for our characters to really have to grow into this greater responsibility. So that's the reason why there's a shipwreck and why these chumps, reasonably chumps, are having to take on a bigger quest. And then shipwreck, and then unconscious because, you're swimming in the sea all night, and by the time you manage to wash up on shore, you're exhausted enough that you fall asleep, or you passed out holding on to some, floating something or other, or your horse dragged you to shore, whatever it might be. And we're having our players make con saves to see who wakes up first in order to put us in the middle of action, because our players are about to get into a fight right away at the very start of this campaign. The very opening scene is waking up on the beach, looking around, and then combat begins. And it's important to know who wakes up first, because I wanted to give us a, how do you want to say? I wanted to bring us not just into the action, but into some serious tactical decision making and seeing how people wanted to work together, and to give us some very easy stepping into 5th edition rules. So here we are on our battle map. We've got these Azari fighters who are way off to the left of the battle screen, and our players are way off to the right. And if you look at the placement of all of these things, I set this up in advance, and it's all very carefully placed out. The Azari are 2 to 3 rounds away from our players if they were to run up to them. And our players are each within 1 round of movement from each other. So no matter who it is that wakes up first, our players are going to be able to get to somebody and use an action to shake them awake. And this will teach our players about movement in 5th edition. You've got, 30 feet of movement. Oh, hey, look, this guy's 15 feet away. This guy's 30 feet away. I could move 15 feet here and then another 10 feet to that person. So the distances between these characters, right? Oh, maybe I should put my mouse in here. The distances between these characters are actually very intentionally picked. Here we go.
There are probably scavengers who are just picking up things off of the ocean. There's some stuff lying around. There's some.
There we go. Now you can see it. Yeah. So like over here, we've got Mr. Moon's character, and that spacing is very intentional, right? That's 3 squares to get to here, and then another 4 or 5 to get to this corner, or 6 to get all the way to him. Roy is way over here, and that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to get to this guy. So each one of these characters can get to at least 2 people with a single set of movements, which allows us to have some options. And our Azari over here can then approach and spend a round approaching, and then our players can do something, and then another round approaching, and then our players can do something. And that gives us the opportunity for one person to say, well, I'm going to wake up this guy for my turn, and then like move over here. And the next round, I'm going to wake up this guy and move over here, and get our players sort of everybody wake up, there's a fight happening, and gives them a little bit of time to prepare for the fight. Or if they really, really want, they can try and like do the fight on their own. But this is enough monsters that you wouldn't really try to pick that fight on your own. Fingers crossed, hopefully. The other thing that we have going on here is that our monsters, our Azari, aren't necessarily single-mindedly trying to overwhelm our players and kill them all. The other major concept I want to introduce at this point in the game is the morale system. I want to have a bunch of weak crap monsters that our players can easily fight, and that once the monsters start to die, the rest of them will retreat and run away. And we can do this even though our players don't have much in the way of weapons or armor or gear. I think we rolled to see if anyone has anything during the session 0, and nobody really has anything. But there is, there's a barrel nearby. There's some other debris lying around. There's probably some rocks they could pick up. I was trusting that my players would come up with some sort of improvised weapon, or at least be able to use their fists and beat things into submission. I think in 5th edition, you do 1 damage plus your strength modifier. And with a couple of characters with pretty good strength, like, you're going to be able to beat these creatures with your hands. Not a problem. And again, with the morale system that we're talking about, that should help us get the monsters to run away. So here we are rolling into initiative for the first time.
But you're also just like juicy target.
The other thing that we want to talk about is the horse. The horse is down here, and the horse is a key component of this campaign, and will continue to be a key component of this campaign. And the horse down here allows us to have a lot of monsters on the map, but then, like, not all of them are attacking the players, right? There's a treasure chest over here, there's a horse over here, so even though we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 monsters on the map, 2 of them are going to hang with the horse. Some of them might come do this thing over here. We've got like a big threat that comes in like incremental waves. And then we've got objectives on the map, for lack of a better word, for our monsters that will explain why they're not just bum rushing the party. In addition to the fact that I think having a fight where monsters are mindlessly attacking the party for no reason doesn't really work. And when you're washed up folks who are just like randos washed up on the beach, you're probably not much of a threat for these monsters. At least from the monster's point of view, you're just like randoms. Yeah, and we can see they're moving forward now. And they're not dashing. They're not running to the party as fast as possible. They're approaching them slowly. They're doing their 30 feet of movement-ish, and then they're readying an attack. They're like sauntering up to the party, curious as to who these people are, not really sure, taking a round or 2 to investigate the situation and see what's up, and approaching carefully. That's the move and ready attack, is what I would call a careful approach. And we're describing a careful approach in terms of game mechanics by saying they walk and ready. They walk and ready. And that's a nice, easy, like, what's going on over here, investigating, getting the feel for the enemy. And here I do believe Vasher is trying to figure out
So here's what I want to do.
his horse
I want
stuff.
to try to get the horse to come to me.
You want to
I wanted to fight off
your
the
great
things, yep.
steed. You're going to fight them all by yourself. Maybe hadn't
with your
expected
trusty
this.
warhorse.
Well, if I can get the horse, I'm a lot scarier.
You can hear those comments
I
in
can
me
wake
like
up
you're
my
going to
friends.
fight them all off as like a this
So
is a bad
would-
idea,
would-
dude. Don't
well,
try
My
it.
question is, would calling the horse to me cost an action?
Definitely. 100%.
Okay. And then what would be so let's say that's my first option, and what would be involved if I were to step back a couple of feet and try to wake someone else up?
It would just be your movement to get close to them and then an action to wake them up. They are like you. They are sleeping on the beach.
I'm giving him
in
a
the
very
sun. Reasonable. You could wake up an ally with an action, or you could try and call a horse as an action. The horse is not a success, but the ally is a success. I'm trying to
Conscious and bleeding to death.
bait him into what I think is the optimal strategy for the party because I don't want them to die here.
The horse is probably a lot bigger than these thingies. So I'm going to call the horse because I think, honestly, the horse could probably kill all these lizards on his own.
He's right, though. I hadn't considered this, but he's absolutely right.
After what he's been through, almost certainly.
Go
Rather
ahead
than wake up a...
and make me an animal handling check.
Yeah, I'm going to try and call the horse to me. Oh,
Thank God.
Yeah.
Thank God.
What do you-
Because if he could defeat
how
all
does
of these
your-
on his
your calling of the
own,
horse
that would be
go?
cool,
What's it
but it would be
like?
really
basically,
boring for other
I'm trying to-
players.
let's say I
And the
have
objective
a-
here is for everyone to have fun.
something
And so
like that.
if he
Like a
can
50
call the
drive,
war
something
horse
like
and
that.
scare off all the enemies, that's pretty cool. But the three other players are just going to be sitting there twiddling their thumbs, and I want all of my players to be engaged in this session.
my movement,
So it's not
I'll
that
step
I have a reason, like I don't want the warhorse to be useful. I'm trying to build a game for other players, so I'm trying to encourage him to get the other players to play the game.
Because we don't roll initiative each round. We just keep one initiative
Oh,
the
yeah.
whole way through. Mm-hmm.
I like that.
All right.
And they're getting a little closer.
Here we go.
The threats are getting a little more
I feel
real.
like I should be able to
If you
make a
can't
hide
call
to
your
seek
warhorse in
object later.
time,
Do you?
Yes.
Oh, here we go, Nick.
You know,
I'm just saying what I feel.
if
It's
you
fine. It's
if you
fine
make
to
a
say
high
things.
check, I will reduce the time by half that it takes for you to wake up.
There you go.
What if I roll badly?
You wanted to make a check.
this is
go
a bait
ahead.
here. I said reduce the time by half, but we haven't mentioned how long
Yeah,
it takes for him to wake up.
No,
And if we're talking in terms of minutes and reducing by half, it doesn't even matter. So it doesn't matter what he rolled.
It is your turn.
He got
Basher.
baited into a
These
pointless
things are getting
thing. Like,
closer.
sure, instead of waking up in 2
so I
hours,
spotted this
you'll wake
rather
up in
large
1
burning
hour.
man,
It still won't
and
matter for the game.
And I kick him a little bit roughly, trying to wake him up.
All right,
Get
we've
up, we're
taken
in
an
trouble.
action to wake up the first
You
ally.
will successfully
Great.
wake him up.
We
He is
want our
prone.
allies awake for this combat.
So he's lying down, and in 5th edition.
Now, you can't see the HP bars very well here. We fix it a little bit later on while we're making our overlays. But our players are all at full HP. And I had really considered starting our players at partial HP and with no spell slots left. Because if you've just been in a storm and you're washed up on shore, you should probably be pretty injured and maybe not have everything going on. Instead,
So I can't cast.
we gave them 2 levels of exhaustion, which is so we can introduce this exhaustion system for the game, because I think exhaustion is going to be fun, and I think it's a really nice balancing mechanic in 5th edition that we should go out of our way to include. And
I'm gonna.
I want to make sure that we come up with more opportunities to introduce exhaustion in the game.
So
I'm gonna drop the club at his feet, and I'll say I'll wake the others.
wow. I will add a club to your character sheet. Big burly man.
All right, so our first player is armed, and our paladin, our leader, is going around waking everybody up,
And
which
I'm
is
15 feet
really
towards,
nice, actually. I like that the high charismatic character, who is sort of the leader of the party, like the de facto leader of the party, is the one who woke up first and is going around and arming his allies while waking everybody up. Like that, that's the role of a good leader
Is dual wielding a
in
thing
a situation.
here or no? Because I have a dagger already, and now I'll have a club.
Yes.
I don't know if I needed to spec into that or.
There is a feat for dual wielding. I think by default, when you dual wield, your offhand weapon doesn't get your ability modifier. So it would just be your like.
Now, I
if you
think I
hit
might
with
have
your
ruled
dagger,
this
if
dual
that's the
wielding stuff a
offhand,
little
it would
wrong.
just be a
I'm
D4
going to
for
double check it
damage,
right
D4
now.
plus one.
I have a feeling
Probably
that
check
you
out. It's
might
gonna
that dual wielding
later.
might not be.
Because if I can, I'm probably just gonna dual wield then.
What is the? Is there a dual wielding feat that is needed to do all the dual wielding stuff correctly? No. Okay. No. I did it right. Perfect. For a moment there, I was concerned that I had overplayed the dual wielding abilities.
Let's see. In order to dual wield, we must have to understand the light weapon property. The character must be holding the weapons that your
Blah
character's
blah blah
is
blah.
holding
All
must
right, we're gonna
both
skip
be light
ahead in
weapons.
this
So
VOD a
your
little
daggers
bit
will
here.
wield-
Skip. All right, so who do we got? We've got Cassian's in. Nope, nobody else has rolled into initiative.
For cuts of damage.
Actually, we're gonna scroll back just a little bit here. So Cassian's gonna take his first round of
This is
action.
more- However, he
Um,
did just get stabbed by this guy.
Out of the
I
blue,
need to-
you know.
Yeah.
Actually, Cassian had taken damage.
text in
7
chat,
damage
it'll
is
roll
quite a
damage
lot
for
for
ya.
Cassian at this
Gonna be
point. He's
6
only got
damage?
22 HP. So that's
Excellent.
about a
Almost
third
slaying
of his
the creature
HP.
in a
These
single
monsters
blow,
roll
your
really,
dagger
really
runs
high
right into his
for their
body.
damage in this
It's only
battle,
4
and it's
damage,
a little bit
so
scary. They roll way higher than I was expecting, and they do a lot of damage. And I really didn't want the party to wipe, but this gets a little close. Luckily, Cassian does 6 damage and almost
For
kills this
another
guy.
21.
Now, as I had mentioned before, I wanted to introduce a morale system to our players so that we would get the impression monsters would run away. And unfortunately, Cassian is just a fucking beast.
7.5 feet of movement, sir.
And he kills the monster out front. I was really hoping he would just wound the monster so that on the monster's turn, I could show that it's running away when it's injured. And I want to get our players... I want our players to get the concept that
he looks around,
you can just
and
wound someone
he spots
and then move on to the next
laying
creature.
down.
And you don't have to fight everything down. So if you're fighting 2 opponents,
sees these
split
two,
your
so
attacks,
Cassian's gonna start
wound both
moving
of
to
them,
enter
and then they'll both
the
retreat rather than using both of your attacks on one creature to kill that one thing, and then the other one might still fight you. I really want to get this like greater distribution of damage and this idea of like beating but not necessarily killing everything you face. That's one of the things I want to introduce into this game, and I think we've done it really well in subsequent sessions. We're recording this after our players have done 1, 2,
Then you get to the cleric.
3, 4 sessions. I think we've already played 4 sessions.
Cleric, you are awake but prone.
Now we're
He's
waking up
rolling
our
shit.
second cleric, our second character, a cleric.
And I'll say to him, get up, we're under attack. Quickly.
Do you see that Vasher has taken a little bit of damage here?
What?
Right.
I don't know. I'm confused, but I guess.
Steermere rolls in. Very nice.
Okay.
Ah,
our
much
next guy
nicer
over
zoom
here,
level on what's going on here.
Excellent. Is taking a look at this. Now he sees this big hulking guy just smash and bash and double.
So we
back
have a
his
whole bunch of
friend.
monsters that are
And
off
so
the
instead
screen.
of
They're
going
way
to
over
engage
here on the
combat
left
any
side.
further,
Then they
he
haven't really
runs
joined in the fight. We've only had
backwards
these
and begins to
3.
call to the other
One
lesser
creature goes
creatures
down.
there. The
He
other
didn't get to run
has
away. And so
Azai.
instead of having this
Azai,
one wounded
Azai.
one run away, I'm going to show
I
that
should be
this
able to pronounce
guy
the
is
name.
backing off. And he's making tactical decisions, and he's calling his allies for help to show that this isn't just mindless monsters fight to the death. We don't want mindless fighting to the death. We want some interplay. We want some, like, the monsters have goals, they have plans, they have survivability in mind, they have allies that they can call for reinforcements. I want to create a little bit more than just hack and slash. Like, these monsters don't speak the language, so you can't negotiate with them.
I see his
But introducing the monsters as more than just like mindless slaughter does give us an opportunity for our players to
Right. So it
interact
was
with the
just
monsters
this
in
one.
more interesting or more fun ways.
Our next Dazari
In theory,
is
you know,
hanging out
later when it's
way
not
on the other side of the map,
dumb
and
creatures
comes on
who
out of
don't speak the common
shallows
tongue.
and begins to hurry up.
Cassian curses himself because he left the scimitar on the ground instead of picking it up.
Yep,
He's
something
gonna go
Cassian.
behind this guy.
Mhm.
I have 15 feet of movement, so I'm able to make it. Do I get
Learning the movement system
advantage
here.
or anything because I'm attacking from behind, or is that not a thing?
No, if you have,
He's gonna turn to faith.
I'm just gonna move the cleric for just a moment. If you are on opposite sides of a creature, like exactly opposite, like this, not corner to side, but exactly opposite, you get flanking bonuses.
Got it.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Right.
I am
So
going to
flanking
move
is an
there.
optional rule in 5e. It's a way to use tactical positioning to your advantage, which I love. I want to introduce. 5e does get a little bit weird where it's like everyone is facing all directions all at once, and there's only one version, one type of AC, and you have it all the time. Like, it's nice. It's simple. It makes the game easier to run. But it is nice to then have some sort of like, well, if we position ourselves right, I can get a bonus. And I really like that.
10 plus
Um,
2 HP.
Yes.
Nick, okay, you can
as
see.
well as
We're gonna go back just a moment.
Okay.
You can see
So if I use
Nick
a
right
second
here
one
as he's measuring.
1d10 plus 2 HP.
Is it happening here? He does a bunch of measuring stuff because the way that we're doing the grid here is
action surge
using
would
the
give you an
3.5
extra
/
action.
Pathfinder rules, where
Second wind will
diagonal.
just
The first
recover your
diagonal is
HP.
5 feet of movement. The second diagonal is
I'm
10
going
feet of
to
movement.
attack
The
with
third
the club as
diagonal
my
is
bonus
5
action.
feet. The fourth diagonal is 10 feet again.
Another miss.
And there's a bunch of times where you can
And
watch him measuring
going
things, where
to
he's trying to map
surge
out a
using
path
one
of where
action
he's
to
going to
finish
go,
the shot.
where he like measures, and all of a sudden it
against
jumps from like, you know, 7 feet to like
23 will
15
hit.
feet, and then you can see him like go right to the
There has
like
to be a natural 20,
7.9
and on all
and then
natural
try to
20s,
measure
you
somewhere else
automatically crit.
in order to like measure a more optimal path by
bringing the HP
pixel
down to
picking
half.
where his
Steer
ruler
there.
is going, and I called him out on
wicked.
him once and he denied it.
Open my eyes. I
And
see a
maybe
barrel in
it's a
front of me.
coincidence, and maybe I'm
guess.
overreading
Hold the
into
barrel
it,
and use it to
but that guy was
help me get to
definitely
my
trying to
feet
find a way
with
to
both
cheat the
legs.
movement of the grid,
I can hear
and
the
he
sounds of
multiple
combat going on.
times
I
tries
can
to cheat
hear
the movement of
small
the grid.
diminutive
Come on to you,
animalistic
Nick. I
creatures.
see what you're doing, buddy. I see what's
Correct
going
me, I think my
on.
movement is 7.5 feet, right? Because I have to stand up and I've got half speed. So I
Yes.
can't actually get to that kobold this turn.
Correct.
What I will try and do is, I'm using the barrel to stand up.
Mm-hmm.
I want to summon my strength and just pick this thing up and spin around and throw it at that this Azari
That's
here.
excellent. It'll be an athletics check because the barrel's like covered with
Yes.
sand, and you need to like get the sand out of it to lift it over your head.
Love
and
the
chuck
creative
it.
thinking of
But
throwing
since
barrels.
you are exhausted, you have disadvantage on ability checks.
Okay.
It's unfortunate. I did not want to give him a disadvantage.
It's a natural one, steer.
Wouldn't have mattered anyway. But I would really have loved it if you just picked up the barrel and threw it at this guy. It would have been great. That would have been fantastic. Exhaustion in 5e starts at your first level, gives you half.
Arms are tired.
I shouldn't say half, but disadvantage on ability checks.
Yeah, it's just like
Your second level is
stuck in the sand and you
half
spend your whole
movement
round,
speed.
like, your 6
Your
seconds
third
trying
level
to-
is disadvantage on attack rolls and saving throws.
Maybe in the failure, rip off a plank
Maybe.
of wood from its use as a
I
weapon.
can't remember what the other ones
can
are. Maybe it's
easily
just attack
withdraw
rolls
a
and then it's
rogue
saving
section
throws
barrel.
and then it's
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I'm giving you
I
a
don't
club
remember.
on your character sheet.
But our characters are starting with 2 levels of exhaustion, having survived the shipwreck at sea,
Sure.
which does mean their speed is a little bit slower.
I will continue on moving
Right, 5, 10, 15.
towards the next player. And I noticed this guy on the ground.
So Vasher is able to get from one person to the next to the next. I should also mention that we placed the mage very intentionally far away. I think the order of characters being placed was actually in order of HP. Yeah, it was Cassian with the highest HP closest, then Vasher the next highest HP, the next closest, then Steermere the next highest over here, and then the lowest HP character who also has the ranged attacks furthest away from the monsters. It wasn't a random arrangement of positions. It was very carefully picked, their exact placement and order in order to
initiative to guide.
optimize the party's survivability in this combat when they're having to go around waking themselves up.
There's just,
Although I'm
select
noticing
character,
now
there's
that
a 0
if Roy
initiative
had
button
woken
in the
up
upper left-hand
first,
corner
5,
of the screen.
10, 15, 20 feet of movement, he would have had to move and dash and wouldn't have been able to wake anybody up on his turn.
Next level class.
But not a big deal here.
Above hit points.
Oh god, I'm sorry, I'm so confused.
No,
On the core tab.
Oh god.
Also,
Oh,
just
God.
on the
Oh wait, yes.
in the
Yes,
game.
I can do it.
You don't
yes.
even need.
Initiative 0. There we go. Boom. I was
Oh,
like,
Roy Waystar.
Ah, there we go. Excellent. Roy will be put in order. Excellent. Well, Vasher, any other? You moved. You took an action. That's it. Yeah.
That's me done. That's me done.
All
All
right.
right. What do we got going on here?
The next
We can see
set of
in
creatures
the
are gonna
initiative
come
bar
on
up
in
here, which
order.
is so much nicer, by the way. I really prefer, at least for
this one is
display
going to
on
wait for
stream,
his friends.
to have the
He's gonna back
initiative
up a little bit.
order
He's not going
like
alone. He's
this
already
up
seen
here,
what's
rather than
happened.
like a movable little
attack.
thing that sits on the side and like takes up, this much space. Whoops.
This one
like
is going
this.
to
That
stay
would
with
just
the
be
Warhorse, 'cause he's already
atrocious.
got the Warhorse by the reins.
But
He doesn't
having
wanna
it
let this
in this
prize
nice
go.
long thin
So
bar
the
at the
other
top
one
of the
will
screen.
scurry
Oh,
away
perfect.
while the
Love
first
it.
one holds on to the Warhorse. We just take him out of the initiative order.
We
And,
can hear that there are Warhorse things going on. The Warhorse isn't really on the screen right now. We're reminding everyone that the
finally,
warhorse
the one
exists, that
next
the
to the
enemies
big
are
man.
interacting with it.
He's looking
We're not
around. He sees
completely
the big
ignoring
guy
it, but we're not
with
spending a
club
lot of
and
time on it. We're
all
kind of like,
his
well, here they're
friends on
doing
the
some
other
stuff.
side,
Moving on, moving
and
on.
some new enemies behind him. So he's going to take the disengage action, which only works if you're going away. So he can disengage to here.
This is another
or
house
to
rule,
here,
this disengage
or
that we're
to
explaining
here.
right here.
Any of those squares is away from you.
And this is an
We'll
important
disengage
house
there,
rule
and
because the
then use the rest of
disengage
his
rule,
movement
as written,
this way.
says you don't take opportunity attacks when you
leaving
move,
us with
which is so dumb because then you
this
could just
one,
disengage
who
and
will
run
hurry up
past a whole bunch of
everybody
enemies,
and
like and
Roy.
get behind
You may
them,
now
and
take your
essentially
turn,
you
curl
can't
into a ball and
like
die.
then there's
Do
no.
I? Okay, so
It's
I recognize
overpowered,
these
you know.
creatures, yeah?
If you want to run past
Yeah,
your
as
enemies, you should
being
take the
a
dodge
Zari, I know
action,
of them.
and disengage should be
know
used
that
for
Azari
getting away, for
are sort of
disengaging
stupid,
and fleeing.
but
And so
rather-
here, having the disengage be,
they're sort of
you
stupid
have to
lizard
move
folk, like a
away
branch of lizard
from
folk,
enemies.
family tree
You
that
can't move
live in
towards them.
sandy areas.
Is a
You know that
really
they
simple,
can burrow into
really
the sand
nice
to the point where the
change.
sand covers them
And
only
that was
their
a
eyeballs
good
are sort of
opportunity
sticking out,
to
and then
show
they're
the
at
disengage
that
action,
level and watch
and
what's
also show
happening,
that these
or they can
monsters aren't just going to
burrow
stand
down
here
to
and
about
fight to the death
3
for
feet
absolutely
below.
no reason.
In either situation, if they're at the surface, they're almost impossible to detect. If they're buried down below, they're absolutely impossible to detect. And they
Okay.
can do that rather quickly.
Now,
Yeah, I think,
one of the
I'm
premises
just-
of this
I'm just-
campaign
I'm
was
still
our
shocked
players
that
wanted
it's
to
just
be
Shipwreck.
in a new land where they have to learn new things about people, and they have to
Excellent.
like kind of explore a region. At least that was what we had talked about before the campaign started. And then Jan, Pokemon Challenges, made a character who's like a nerd fan. Like he's a weeb for Arcadia, which is a little bit at odds with we're new people coming to a new land and we have to learn new things because like he knows things about it. And it's a little difficult at times for me to manage the like, I'm trying to introduce you to new stuff that your characters have never seen, but like this guy knows something about it. Which is sometimes frustrating, and sometimes it works to our advantage. I haven't yet really tried to give him disinformation. The information I've given him thus far in the campaign has been pretty accurate. And I've tried to couch it in a little bit of maybe oversimplified or overhyped up tones when it's actually been like pretty fucking straightforward. And I might have to start giving him like less accurate or like overly simplified, like really overly simplified, or like one-sided angular viewpoints of stuff. It's just difficult when you're playing the information game, like what does my character know, to give someone false information, because then when they act on that false information and you're like, haha, it was false information, it doesn't feel very good. It doesn't feel very good to be like, well, what do I know? And the DM says, 1 + 1 is 3. And the player's like, oh, well, I say 1 + 1 is 3. And the DM's like, haha, it's not 3, it's 2. And the player doesn't feel like they're learning something. They're just like, oh, well, I was forced into that situation. And like, it doesn't give a lot of good interplay to lie to your players, or I shouldn't say lie to your players, but to give them false information that they can then make their decisions on, and then to come back and say it was false to begin with. Like, that's not a fun mechanic. Unless you can give the players like a huge dump of information all at once, part of which is true and part of which is not true. And then they can and then give them the warning that it's not all true. And then they can like look at the information and try to make their best judgments. But when you give it to them in bite-sized pieces, like, hey, what does my character know about this? Ooh, it's real tough. It's real tough to give them bad info.
Okay, so the trigger is when a sufficient number of kobolds are adjacent to you or within range.
Right here, we're talking about how readied actions work, and we're trying to explain the rules very clearly.
That's okay.
What are the triggers? How does this happen? We're all
Vasher.
coming into 5e. We haven't played
Crying.
5e as a group together.
fucking
Some people are
mage
new to
is
5e,
crying.
so we're taking our time to over-explain every rule in this first battle. This first battle is not particularly interesting in and of itself. It's just a welcome to the game system
I
sort of
see
rule.
that his crying could potentially lead us
Welcome
into
to
danger.
how combat works.
don't know.
Welcome to
I
how
don't know
monsters
if he's
might
an
work.
age,
Welcome
but I
to
say, get up,
retreats
lad.
and morale
We'll be talking
and
to you later.
disengages.
We're all dead
It's a
without your
welcome
help,
to a
and then I'm gonna
mechanics
move away from
battle.
it, and I'm gonna call out to the party.
The monsters aren't particularly
Just one
interesting.
line. Ready.
The threats here aren't particularly high. The players are
I will
really
shout-
designed to
I'll shout
win
out,
this
stay
battle, but
15
suffer
feet
some
away.
minor injuries, and then get some good loot out of the battle.
Am I in range
Because
here
they're
if I'm here?
flat
Yeah,
fucking
you
broke
are.
and they
Yeah,
need to
you
make
are.
some money. They're going to need a lot of
I
money
want
to run the
exactly
game.
10 feet
And so
just
this is a great opportunity to start like rewarding them with loot and stuff. I don't know if they take, I can't remember if they take all the scimitars from this battle. I don't think they do. I think maybe a couple of them grab some weapons, but otherwise it's pretty chill.
15-foot cube, so everything within 15 feet of you. Yep, perfect.
So here we go. We got the first spell being
Next
readied.
up is
I don't remember if we rule this quite
Yes,
right
I'd
when
like
it
to
comes
try
to happen.
I'd like to try to get the warhorse to try and break free again, if I could try. Do I take disadvantage on the skill check?
You do. Your lips are parched.
So I just click disadvantage and then click animal handling. Ah,
It says ability checks. I assume that's a skill check as well, yeah?
Yeah. Right. The Azari are getting closer and closer. The whole pack of them is almost here now, except for the one that's hanging up by the warhorse. 60 feet, 60 feet, 60 feet.
All right, we're gonna
First
skip
one.
forward.
Is
All right, so we get one creature comes up to him. That's not enough to trigger the thunder wave.
Concentration.
He has to make his concentration save because he's readying an action.
Oh, cool, Neal. Where's
DC
concentration?
10.
Constitution?
Constitution saving throw, yeah.
Oh, it's Constitution.
Right?
Okay, cool.
He loses concentration on his spell. It fizzles
See, taking
and does
damage
not
when you're
work.
Held spell.
Damage. It's beautiful.
Perfect.
Next one is
Sorry,
fresh
Nick.
ally Tar, a
I like his
12.
plan. His
You
plan,
are
like, I'm
taking
gonna thunder
damage,
wave when they all get
7
close to me.
HP.
Unfortunately, it
Roy.
doesn't go well for him.
It's getting bad out there.
And the
No
damage starts to get
survivors
really
in the
high.
ship
Roy,
are going to
famously
die
in this
without you.
battle, sits in the corner and doesn't do anything until the very end. Classic Roy maneuver where he just hangs out and doesn't do shit and then like saves the day at the very end, although he could have saved the day far earlier with far less action.
And he'll fucking pull his familiar out of the pocket dimension and scream, Vika, defend me! Defend me!
Oh god, I love Vika.
Vika appears.
Vika's so
where's
weak.
Vika
Vika
appear?
is so trash, but like
where can I make? Can I
he's
make
pretty
him,
great.
Like, anywhere, or just
I
like
want to
somewhere?
find some abilities
read
or some
yourself.
spells or maybe some custom spells to really improve Vika because he's trying to make Vika like a Pokemon style thing. That's what he's doing. And aside from Dragon's Breath, Vika's not great. There's not a lot of touch attack spells in 5e,
Range
and there's not a lot of great
Okay,
things that
I'll make
Vika
him
can
appear
do. So we
close to
intentionally
the-
added Dragon's Breath to the
Next.
spell book that he's got so that he
As
could
an
get it very
action,
quickly. I
while
think he
is
picked it on his own
temporarily
anyway.
dismissed, You can cause it to reappear in any unoccupied space.
But I
within
think we
30
might
feet
need
of
to
you.
add some custom spells or some custom
so
abilities
appear
in
right
order
next
to make
to,
Vika feel more like a useful
whoever's
ally.
fighting
Because
the
right
guys
now,
right now.
Vika's kind of
That's right.
trash.
Oh, yeah. Wait,
The Empiric Touch is a nice one. It's the only nice one.
Oh, excellent.
But the problem is that Vika's got like
Yes,
10
yes, you would.
AC and like
You're good.
5 hit points or something, and so
because your
Vika
advantage and
dies
your
like
disadvantage
that.
cancel, and so it
And then
takes
you need like a
advantage.
brazier
It's
and a
got
whole bunch of
shot save
materials
on
to
saving
resummon
throws
him.
on
So if like
those
Vika
checks.
dies,
Oh, it's not.
you got to get back to
saving
safe town
Third
in order
level is gonna
to
be
resurrect him,
disadvantage
to
on
bring him
attack rolls
back.
and saving
So we need some
throws.
sort
Oh,
of
you're
like,
good, buddy.
you know,
You're
life
good.
saving,
But he does
like
have
when
to do it
Vika goes
under
down to
concentration.
0,
Yes. You just
that they get to make a saving throw and come back, some sort of like
Another
undead
con
fortitude or some
Yes,
sort
well
of
done.
the first time you're knocked down to
Oh,
0, you
beautiful. It's-
remain at
it's
1
all
HP
coming together.
instead, or we need some sort of
I'm about to kill his Pokemon and
of
kill him.
ability.
Yeah.
Maybe like give Vika a Misty Step
Cassian
style
heard him
thing
say, "Get away,
that
get
they
away
can
from
use as a reaction.
So Cassian
I don't
is
know.
going
We'll have
to,
to figure out what it is, but we
back
got to
up a
give
little
Vika
bit
some
and
more
move to
survivability
protect,
to turn them into a better
I don't know how you
Pokemon.
want to rule this. Can I move to this square and then as people come, Can he move over here or over here?
You can use your action to ready movement if you would like, instead of an attack.
No, I think that I'm just gonna move. So I was here. I'm gonna move. I think it was here. I'm gonna move 15 feet to here.
Okay.
Here, like here.
Excellent.
Now you'll notice the damage rolls on these monsters are crazy high. I think they do D6 plus 2 damage.
Here you go.
And so the 6s and the 7s represent 4s and 5s on the D6s and are really, really high. It's
all right.
It's actually
Steermere,
quite
it
a
is
lot
your
of
turn.
damage.
I am going to unleash my Thunderwave at this point, I think.
So you release it
I think just taking this turn's action. Right.
as a reaction, so you can do it like right before your turn comes around. Like as he moves out of the way, you can Thunderwave.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
All right, that's
At this point in the battle, the party needs like a smidge of help. And so I think Nick here was going to just use his action to release the Thunderwave, which does bend the rules because you can only hold it for 1 round. And me saying, well, you had these conditions, but your turn is coming up, so you didn't get a 3rd creature on you, so we're going to like release it now, is probably bending the rules in a different way, but then it does allow him to use his reaction to get the Thunderwave off before his turn. It's a little bit of... I mean, he was trying to bend them one way, I bent them the other way. They probably just should have fizzled, and he should have taken, lost a spell slot and everything. But instead, we're giving him the spell at the very microsecond before his turn begins because clearly the party needs help.
Cast my Thunderwave now.
And we don't want anyone to wipe here necessarily. And we're new to 5e. We're being a little bit more gentle as everyone's like picking up what's happening. This is a little bit of hand holding just to get everybody adjusted to the 5th edition.
I would assume so.
This is 5e though, who knows?
When a creature within 5 feet of you that you can see hits you with an attack.
No. It's my channel divinity. Sorry, not Wrath of the Storm.
Destructive Wrath.
There you go.
When you roll lightning or thunder damage, you can use your channel divinity to go max instead of
now
rolling.
this channel
don't
divinity
roll,
ability
you
to max
just declare
damage
max.
automatically is so
that's what
strong.
I'm gonna do, so
It
I
is
use my
so
channel divinity
strong, especially with this
Which comes back
AOE
once
thunder
per
attack that he does all the time. Like, it's not a problem that it's so strong. It just is really strong. Like, that's great. It gives the party a little bit of AOE, which they desperately need. They really don't have any area of effect spells. They don't really have very much in the way of CC. So being able to occasionally just blow away a whole bunch of people is pretty great.
And so they are obliterated.
What about the Pokemon?
Our dearly beloved 4 HP beetle has no shot. As soon as your beetle appears, Roy, it is blown apart in a blast.
I think we then in a moment realize that Thunderwave is a 15-foot cube that sits in front of you. It doesn't happen all the way around you. We're going to skip ahead. Someone reminds us in a moment.
Next to you.
Okay.
Well done.
As for me, I take.
Thank God for rules lawyers and people double checking things.
And you've roused the troops. You've rallied the people.
All right, we're going to skip ahead. I've given some color commentary, blah, blah, blah. Vasher comes forward, whistles again.
And the horse.
Azari's still holding on. Vasher, this moment where Vasher keeps trying to call his warhorse and the Azari keep holding on to it is
I feel like Scamp would know my voice, okay?
interesting.
I'll give you advantage on your roll then. Which
It's a
still
bit
makes
of
it
a
12.
weird thing because what he's
because you disadvantage and
what he's trying to do is get the warhorse to become a combat unit, just like an ally in the field who will attack, which is not what we want. Because if the warhorse is like a mount that will attack at will for him, then the warhorse is a threat, and the warhorse will get killed very, very quickly and die. And so
cleric who like blasts you, and then
we don't want that to happen. We don't want the horse to be the de facto target for enemy attacks. Horses are valuable. We want our mechanics to reinforce the idea that you don't attack mounts, you capture mounts. So we don't want the mounts to be what do you call it?
Guys, look out! Some of them.
We don't want the mounts to be
I've heard
like
stories about these guys.
fighting allies who do damage, because if they do that, then they become people that you would target right away, and then they die really quickly because their HP is not great and their AC is not great, and then the mounts are just being killed all the time, and that goes very much against the grain of having a mount.
During this process at all.
We don't want that. It wouldn't be fun for Vasher. In the moment right now, you want the mount to fight because it feels desperate, and so you're like, oh no, mount, please fight. But that's like, we're not looking at the long-term view. And so, yeah, it's an interesting thing that comes up over and over again. And you'll see me always like tamping down the mount as a kicker, or the mount as a biter, or the mount using its combat fighting skills. And it's not because I don't want them to have an additional ally on the field who fights for them. It's because I don't want the mount to be targeted by the enemy. And so I keep coming up and keep trying to finding ways to prevent that from happening, so we don't just kill it right away. Because once the mount starts fighting and doing damage, then the mount becomes the first thing you target down, because it's got shit AC, crap HP, but does pretty good damage. So I'm trying to save this horse, guys. I know it doesn't seem like it, but I'm trying to save his horse in the long run. Okay, it's actually how it's going.
Doesn't it go on his initiative though?
Nope, it's got its own turn.
Is that right? Yes. Okay.
Perfect.
You know,
Alright.
yeah, I know it's counterintuitive. You might think I'm a pet killer, but I only kill the pets when people wildly mistreat them. Like my ferret. Please run into the enemy's hole and tell me what you see. And the enemy's like back there with spears, and the enemy like watches someone like toss a ferret in, and then they fucking murder the ferret, because you know you're using your pets as weapons, so they're going to get killed. So I'm trying to prevent them from being used as weapons. Okay.
It's fine.
Okay.
I dropped the club on the ground. If anyone wants, they can grab it. Next turn, we'll deal with it then.
So our battle continues. The party's getting some weapons. We're going to skip ahead in time a little bit here. Most of the enemy is wounded at this point, or dead at this point. And I think we're about to get like a pretty solid retreat happening. Skip. Bounce ahead in time. Yep, the enemies are starting to retreat. Hey, maybe they're going to play with that chest for a little while. Blah, blah, blah. Party comes forward. How do we end it?
We're gonna see what else is happening on this beach and what our party plans.
And we just go to a break. That's what happened.
All
right.
Who was it?
So we're back to the game. Now we're doing the little bit of like post-battle recap, where the party is figuring out where they are and what's going on. You know, we've been introduced to some mechanics. Let's hop into like what's actually happening in game.
Your definition of we made it.
Story-wise.
Now listen up. The first thing we need to do to search this wreckage to find any food, supplies, anything we can to keep ourselves alive. The second thing we need
party
to do
leader
is find any other survivors.
Those were Azari.
Come on, Roy, and I'll put my arm around you, and we'll start walking up the beach.
I'm still having Vika crisscross across the beach.
Mm-hmm.
To search for them. I will look at Stymir. I was like, that was you. You did the lightning spell, right?
That's right, kid.
Is that like you went all like?
Nick as a grumpy old man is great.
That was so.
I roll my eyes and walk away at this conversation and start searching.
The power of the gods, boy. A high and mighty thing indeed. Didn't do as much good there on the sea, though. That was my job, to avoid the storms. I walk over to the edge of the water and look out into the sea. So, you said this is Arcadia?
Yeah, that's the great land of Arcadia. Have you never heard of it?
No,
as long as we're doing director's commentary, we're going to talk about some of these overlay issues and mechanical, like, streaming issues. For the first couple episodes, when the stinger shows up, like, the audio gets all fucked for a moment. It sort of dies down and then comes back. That was a really frustrating issue to navigate. And that has everything to do with just, like, the back end of the game, and where the overlays had been contracted
I will work
out
with
to our overlay guy,
and I'll try and
who had
talk
just
to-
given us the like a
Roy
JSON
and
file
say,
plus all the other stuff
Roy, so
that you
we
would just
were
like
in
import the
the
settings
northern
to
seas. What do you
OBS.
think this is? You seem to know this
And so we
place.
did.
We're close to his
But there
house,
wasn't like
villages.
any stinger settings anywhere for some freaking reason. And so every time we
there was a storm,
every time we tried to fix the problem, like the stinger options just weren't available. And so in the end, I think what we had to do was
I'm not
delete
I don't really
the
geography that well.
what do you call it,
okay?
the scene from OBS, which is like, you know, the setup for how everything is
What are you
positioned.
doing on this ship?
Update OBS and then like manually rebuild it rather than using the imported JSON files.
history check.
And that
Roy.
allowed the stinger
You don't get disadvantage on this because you're just
audio
remembering
settings to
stuff.
come up, and then we could alter the stinger audio
13,
settings, and then we could
you
fix some of the
remember that
problems there.
Arcadia
But
had
before
a
we knew what that
deserted
problem
region
was, we we had to go
this.
back to
You-
the
it's the
guy
same
to
as,
have
like,
him
looking
rebuild
inland,
the
it's
stinger
like
without having, you know, this
the
without having the audio track, because we thought maybe the audio track of the stinger was causing the problems because we couldn't find any audio settings. And it was a nightmare, and it was a lot of back and forth. And in the end, we finally deleted everything and rebuilt everything from the ground up after updating everything. Found the right settings that were for some reason just not available and not showing up on the display. And then we were able to get the stinger to not fuck with the audio. But in this episode, and we don't know it at this point, we don't know it until after the episode's over, whenever the stinger happens, that's at this transition between scenes, the audio gets a little bit fucked. And in the next session, we haven't fixed it yet, but you'll notice when we get to the next director's commentary, if we get to the next director's commentary, that the stinger transitions when I'm talking, and that I will pause mid-sentence and say, I'll do something like, you know, I really think, and I'll pause, and then I'll scene transition, and then I'll continue my speech. And that's not because I actually needed a pause in my sentence there. It's because I know the stinger is screwing with the audio, and so I'm finding an excuse to say something and finding an excuse to pause mid-sentence so that the transition can happen without cutting off anyone's words, and then continuing to talk as like a soft transition to like a soft fix for the problem. And I think by the third session, it's fixed and solved. But for a little while there, it was touch and go and it was a little spooky.
His token is a lie. He wears no armor.
Paladin of who?
Well, I haven't fully decided yet.
A man after my own heart.
This right here, doing a paladin and you don't know what god you're serving, and having a generalist cleric. Oh, I love it. We've had so many specialist clerics for so long now that I'm really enjoying having a general, like a broad cleric. Cleric of the gods. You get your powers from the gods. You serve the gods, but you're not like devoted and focused to one particular thing. I do like the devoted and focused, but it's nice to get some variety in there. It's nice to get the like broad-reaching cleric who's just here to, you know, enforce the will of the gods on the world and to like, you know, bring their teachings to the commoners and to spread the words around and make sure people follow the paths. And we haven't really gotten to see Greenzerg, Nick Stiermere, do much in the way of being a cleric. Like, he hasn't done much in the way of providing clerical services. He tried a little bit. Sorry, I keep hitting my mic. He tried to like offer up healing in Abelar in the next session. But one of the deals about Abelar is that there's free healing for everybody all the time. And so that kind of fell flat on his face. We're going to have to try and give him some options to be like, you know, a cleric for the people. But I think mostly his niche in this situation is going to be the divine speaker on what is essentially a holy quest, because we're off to get like a resurrection scroll. And so I think we're going to get the like voice of the gods as his role that will come into play closer towards the end. I think in the beginning he's just like, he's got clerical powers, and then as this campaign continues, it'll feel a lot more like, oh, he's a man of God here. It'll start to pick up a little bit. Potato McWhiskey's character, Vasher, is definitely a lot more how do you say a paladin is more, he's less like the speaker for the gods and more of like the divine holy warrior who is here to lead the people, and he gets his inspiration from the divine, but he's not like a speaker for the divine as much. And I think we will see that distinction continuing to get made as the campaign goes.
Azari, the Azari.
One of those Azari had an apple, nearly stole Scamp. There should be fruit trees nearby at the very least. That'll get us through today.
Very clever, Potato.
Let's hope so. Let's keep walking. Could collapse at any minute here.
So what we've seen right here, if we were actually listening to what was happening in game, is that there are two paths for our players. There is going down the beach towards the river in hopes of finding civilization, and there is following the path of the retreated Azari and the path of these other bandits. And we've got two encounters set up. There is a bandit encounter, which is looking really spooky right now because how badly injured our players are with their bad movement speed and everything. I mean, they do have the warhorse, but that bandit encounter, I think actually as this conversation is happening, I'm removing some bandits from the encounter because it was going to be way too lethal. Because I didn't want our party to show up and immediately fight two boss level characters. I really thought the Azari battle would be easier, but the Azari rolled so well on all their damage rolls. It was insane. They always rolled like 4, 5, or 6 on their damage rolls, which was really, really, really high. And the party kind of got their ass handed to them a little bit. Steermir's low AC, I think he's got 9 AC, is real tough.
And you can just type
the bounded accuracy rules are really hard when on players when the players don't have any armor, and right now they don't have any armor, and the battle was definitely more difficult than I was expecting. And so I think I removed one of the two boss bandits from the brigand battle that they in the end don't decide to go after, but was sitting there and waiting for them.
Excellent. Cassian will swap you cheese for jerky.
Thank you very much. Can't stand the smell of cheese.
Why? What's your problem with cheese? Just doesn't taste good?
It just doesn't taste good to me. That's it. Simple.
You nobles are so fussy.
Well, anytime you need, you can swap me.
You can have all of my cheese. Was it
Our characters are still getting defined right here. Being like, I don't like cheese. You nobles are fussy. I'm hungry. I'll take all your cheese. Very, very beginnings of character development that we're starting to see here. You know, that all of our people are like planting some seeds that will turn into really interesting, fun characters down the line.
Yeah. With Roy Waystar's Beetle leading the way.
Right. Can I get everybody in the party to make me perception checks, of course, at disadvantage, because that is one of those things that you will be facing right now. Whoops. That is a error in the streaming options. I don't know how it ended up here. Took us to the wrong page. Steamer rolls a 1.
I thought we had an editor get rid of those things, but somehow it ended up here still.
Everybody else making perception checks. 9.
And OBS, there's like a transition between scenes,
roll it again.
but there's also just a
lower
fade to
of the
black
2 rolls,
button,
but I don't know how
and
you
I think I
roll it
pushed the
before.
fade to black button, which I
Okay,
rarely
so with
ever
a
do,
15,
and so we just went to
Cassian
nothing.
is going to notice
It's a bad
two
button. It
things.
shouldn't be there.
If you are looking,
Hold on, I think
Stream
the
died.
stream is.
no, I faded to black instead of transitioning between panels. It should be a
okay.
2-second error.
Sorry.
My bad.
No, it's my fault.
Yeah.
It
happens.
You'll notice that
the
there
best of
are
us.
2 points of interest that you can see once you get like a little bit up the beach. To your character's left, which is the right on the map, there is off in the far distance, many miles away, many miles away, you can see smoke rising as if from like a town or a city or something, like the little wisps of smoke coming from many chimneys. However, much closer to you, down the beach in the opposite direction, you can see what appear to be drag marks.
This is what we were talking
something or
about a
some
moment
things
ago,
or
where
some
we're showing our
peoples
players the
that have
options
been
before them, the
hauled
ways
up
that
and
they
off
could
the
go.
beach area and then through the desert further inland. Now these are in opposite directions from you.
And this is the first big choice, because we don't want to put our players on rails.
Jesse, will see this.
We want our players to be able to choose their fate and choose their destiny. If they go in the direction of the path with the drag marks, they're going to find some of their friends, which is what they're talking about here.
But it's just gonna be more Azari. We're gonna get ambushed and killed.
It's not Azari, it's
Slice
bandits.
us up. I've heard stories that they take people and they take them.
And going this route leads them in one direction, where they would get weapons, they would get no, they wouldn't get any armor, but they'd get weapons, they'd get clothing, they'd get supplies, they'd get a camel, they'd get tents, they'd get all sorts of stuff, and they would rescue a few people who had been washed up on shore from the boats. These people would have then, not done anything. They would have stayed behind to make a base camp here in Abelar when they get there and try and establish contact with home. Like, we would have pulled them out of the campaign. They would have been, more nobodies. And then the other option is just to go explore the city, to the city. In the first option, where they follow these drag marks, there would have been a fight. There was an oasis battle that was set up, where there were a couple of tents and a bandit or two, like bandit captains, or two sitting in the tents with some bowmen on foot nearby. And then the party could have either, bum rushed them, or tried to sneak up on them, or waited for nighttime to approach them near the oasis. And it would have been a battle. But, seeing how the very similar bandit units fought them later in the campaign in a following session, would have been real tough. Real tough.
This is a war horse, not a pack horse. It's for battle, not carrying. And I don't mean to be mean when I say this, but tired old men.
And yeah, you're doing such a good job of it.
Let's skip ahead a little bit.
Right.
Skip. The party decides what to do.
Boom. There we go. I think that.
Casting.
People
Keep what you're seeing right here, where it says casting, and it's like this weird string. That's when somebody puts a spell into the game, and another player tries to click on the show spell description or the firebolt text to get the damage or to see what's happening. But it's not on your character sheet, and so when you click those buttons, you're putting into
and as they're leaving the
roll
beach,
20 a command that you can't possibly put in. And so if you see this weird gibberish showing up in the roll 20 roll zone, it's because one person did something and someone else is trying to interact with it, but you can't interact with it. But for some reason the DM can interact with it. Maybe if I assign everybody the ability to see each other's sheets, we might be able to get them to show those descriptions.
I roll survival with advantage.
I don't want to give them the ability to edit each other's sheets, because that would create problems where people open the wrong sheets and fuck with things, or people select each other's characters and move them accidentally. And we don't want that happening. We want to prevent our players from accidentally hurting each other and screwing each other over. But the gibberish text when people keep clicking on each other's abilities is unfortunate.
Come on, this could have been any of us.
And I really like here how the party is trying to go after these.
Well, you can track
these
marks through the desert if you would like.
Lost
you don't really
people.
Know how far away you're gonna go.
And right here,
How far can it be?
when you're listening to this,
Have much water. In fact, you have no water.
I'm explaining the difficulties of going into the desert.
Entirely true. I can create.
They don't have water. They don't know where they're going.
Thirsty.
It's a long ways. It might sound like I'm discouraging them from going into the desert, but what we're actually doing is laying the groundwork for walking through the desert.
It's gonna be fine.
I want to make sure that we understand heading into the desert is a difficult thing. And these tracks that they're going to follow, had they followed them, they would have gotten to an oasis pretty fast. They would have ended up there by nightfall, and that would have been their only source of water, so they would have had to go to the oasis. It sort of would have forced an encounter, not necessarily a combat, but an encounter with the bandits.
Keep going.
but we're really going to do some work here to like show that
As we're walking, Cassian will
you
walk,
can't just wander off into the desert without making plans for it. I want
and,
the overland travel to feel like part of an adventure and not just like a hand wave. Yeah, we walked through the desert for 5 days. The desert should feel like a difficult thing, like a thing you have to fight against to survive. The desert should feel like a challenge to navigate. And later in the campaign, we're going to get to grasslands, and we're going to get to forests, and we're going to get to swamps. We're going to get to all these other situations, in which case you can just walk away. Like when you're in the swampy area, if you feel like you can drink swamp water, which in most situations you're going to be able to, I think, at least it's going to be as clean as river water. And in the swamp areas that we're going to go to, you will be able to just like walk and not worry about bringing water with you. And then when you're in the grasslands, you know what? There's probably going to be enough creeks that you should, if as long as you've got like a water skin to fill it up every now and then, you should probably just be able to wander across the grasslands and fill up your water skin as you come across creeks and not worry about it too much. And I want to create that difference of like, oh, this area is filled with life. It's not so hard to survive here, but we're starting in the desert where it's really hard to survive. In retrospect, I think when you're introducing characters to the survivability of lands, you might want to start them off in the place that is easiest to survive in, and then bring them into the lands that are the hardest to survive in. And grow that challenge rather than say like, here's this huge challenge that you have to overcome, and then like whittle away and it gets easier and easier and easier. Although that is fun in itself, because then we get to like, as the players get used to overcoming these challenges, we get to hand wave it a little bit more and hand wave it a little bit more, and we kind of like make this challenge slowly disappear, which feels like progress.
Needs a DC 15 success.
I guess there's advantages and disadvantages to
So what do you have in
both
terms of
operations,
defense? Do you have guidance, Nick?
No,
Is that a thing?
but both order of
Yes,
operations.
but I haven't got it.
But it also works just for like a specific moment, whereas tracking is like a long thing that you're doing.
Right, fair. I have advantage and disadvantage, so I just get one roll, right?
Yes.
What do you have
All right.
disadvantage for?
Fatigue.
Exhaustion.
Got it.
Ah, there we
there you go.
go. There we go.
Perfect. In fact,
22.
you do so good that you can see here that the drag marks have met up with what appears to be a lot of camel tracks. 22 is actually so fantastic. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can count that there's about, give or take a few, 10 camels.
And this is me looking at the map and seeing the number of camels and the number of fighters,
Just head out.
and saying that there's 10 camels around-ish lets the players know that there are going to be 10-ish enemies that they might run into.
Do I know roughly how long or how old they would have been? Can I discern that?
Yeah, these tracks are less than 24 hours old. Judging by where the sun is in the sky right now, they were probably made this morning, and right now it's maybe midday, so a few hours?
I'll tell the party that. There's tracks heading out into the desert, but I don't like our odds just wandering out into the sands in an unfamiliar place.
Yep,
with no
that's
stores,
dangerous.
no food, no water, no supplies.
Super dangerous.
Now, we might be able to follow these tracks, but I'll look up to the sky. What time of day is it?
Around
Right.
noonish. It's hard to know without knowing the landscape and where the sun rises and where the sun sets.
This is a point we're going to pause on for a moment. You can tell the time of day based on the position of the sun. If, and here's if, a couple of other conditions are met. You know the terrain that you're in, and you know where the sun is supposed to set and where the sun is supposed to rise from. If you wake up one day and you don't know what time of year it is, and you're in an unfamiliar situation, and you look up and you see the sun in the sky, you have no idea where it's going to be setting. Maybe the sun is like right there, but maybe it's about to set right there, or maybe it's about to go all the way over there and set over there. The only way for you to really be able to tell time based on the position of the sun is for you to know the path of the sun and then be able to see where it is on that path. And the path of the sun changes depending on the time of year and your latitude, right? It might be low to the horizon, or it might be way above you at midday, or it might even be on the other side of you. If you're at the equator, and one time of year it'll be on the north side of you, on another time of the year it'll be on the south side of you, and then it'll, fall off to the edges. So you can tell time by the sun in your homeland, essentially. In your homeland, if you're familiar with these things, you can tell time by the sun, roughly speaking. But when you are traveling and you're always in new areas and you don't necessarily know where the sun is going to set, it can be really hard to tell what time of day it is. When you're at sea, it's really hard to tell what time of day it is because it is endless water all the way around you, and you actually don't know where the sun is there. But is it about to set in that direction, or is it setting in that direction, or is it setting in that direction? You just don't know these things. And it's one of those things that people of the ancient world or the older world would have understood implicitly without even having it to be explained. But in the modern world, we're used to like clocks and watches and like very, very accurate time. And the whole you can tell time by the sun. You don't really think about it, but it's not the sort of thing that you can just appear somewhere randomly and know what's up right away. But judging by the size of your shadow, it's somewhere within 2 hours of noon.
Do I notice any of the Aziri footsteps with these camels? Do I think it might be them that are on these camels, or is it potentially humans?
You give me another survival check. Let's see if you can recall the Azari tracks that you didn't pay too much attention to on the beach. That's not quite good enough. Yeah. You're not sure.
So I'll be thinking out loud, and I'll say to the party, we have a few options. We can continue along the beach. We can follow these tracks as a party. Or I can jump on the horse and see if I can follow them quickly. And if it's people we can talk to, that might be our way out of this situation. And if it's people who are hostile, well, I'm just fucked.
Now, that plan of his is a great plan.
Camels are the only path?
Love that plan.
We can follow?
It's just the camels.
tracks.
The However,
That's
lead
the
to
camels,
camels, and then with my
that's it.
experience with Dungeons and Dragons,
Here's my thoughts.
I have
We're not gonna
noticed
catch a camel. I think we
time
should
and
go back
again
to that town that we saw. This looks like the work of
players
humans. Whoever's in that town,
will,
they're gonna know where
when they're
these
doing
people
a
are
scouting mission,
We can
will
head
turn
there
it
and
into a
look for the rest of
1 hour
it.
solo session where they
Taking
will
these people
scout
are
up to
probably
something
alive.
and then
They're
they'll
probably intending to keep
negotiate,
them
and then they'll
alive.
keep
They might get to
negotiating,
kill
or
inside,
they'll
right?
try and fight, or
yeah,
they will
keeping
take a
them
lot of
alive and eating
action
their
on their
innards
own.
while
It's difficult
hanging
to get
from
players
the
to
ceiling of their
scout
cave that they're hiding in.
and then
No
return
way, there's little shits
and
for riding
communicate with the
camels.
rest of the party. It's very tempting to go out and scout something, and then you keep scouting, and then you keep scouting, and now I'm playing a really fun game where I'm doing some stuff and it's really intense with me, and it drags. I shouldn't say drags on, but it does end up having the rest of the party be left out of the game for a little while. Which, as a DM, I'm trying to create a fun experience for all my players, and each individual player wants to do fun things, and so sometimes you want to find a reason to no, we're not going to let you have too much fun on your own. We want to have a way for you to come back to the rest of the party. Now, in the end, I don't make that decision here. The party talks about everything, and they decide not to go down that route, but that was a route that we were about to go down, and I was a little concerned in that moment that it would become like a 1 hour Vasher solo quest. Now, that's just a concern. Potato McWhiskey is a great player, and I think he's injured enough at this point and cautious enough that he probably wouldn't have turned it into the Vasher side quest, but it was a concern I was running into. With salt, which is only dehydrating you a little bit more, but at least you're not overheating too fast. By the end of that day, you will come to or by the end of the day, you get to a point where you can go up on a small rise and see the mouth of the great river.
And the first thing you're going to notice is where the river meets the sea is like a chaos of waves. It's not like a nice, broad, gentle river delta. There's like a little spit that comes out here and a little spit that comes out there. And then the currents from the ocean go this way and the currents from the river go that way. And it's just like a clashing, smashing. This clashing, smashing river meets the sea super chaotic zone is based on, is it the Willamette River or is it... There's some river right up in the Pacific Northwest that heads out to sea and creates like a chaotic zone of like hellness where ships sink all the time, and it's a huge like navigational hazard, and going from the river to the sea is a huge problem. And historically, in some places, going from the river to sea has actually been a historical problem. And I really wanted to set up in this zone river boats and ocean boats, and a lack of crossing over, where your ocean boats would never come into the river and your river boats would never go out into the ocean. And I wanted to create like a zone of separation that was hard for that stuff to work. So I found such a zone somewhere in the Pacific Northwest. I can't remember what it's called. That's the Columbia River. That's it. And, sort of took the geography of the Columbia River and tried to describe it a little bit here to help bring some reality to the reason why your river boats are very different from your sea boats, and we don't worry about it.
We're by a river. No, we're by a river.
It would, to get to the river would be a few more hours of walking. That would be your all-nighter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I can make water, but it's my last spell slot, so
but also, in what vessel will you make water? Just on the ground and let it get soaked into the desert? Don't you need?
We're starting our players off in a real tight spot here.
Yeah, let me look
They've got spells, they've got abilities, but they're lacking gear. And gear is one of the things that they should have. And so you're in a desert, you can create water, but it's just going to appear on the ground and soak into the sand immediately. So that's not super helpful.
Yeah.
And I want, it's a little frustrating because they keep trying to do things and I keep being like, but you don't have the gear to do these things. But the goal here is to impress upon our players the importance of having the right tools to survive the region.
That'll be
and in our last session, the fourth session, I think we hand waved those things a little bit. They got the gear, and then we stopped asking questions. And I think I need to do a little bit more like, remember, you've got this gear that allows you to do these things, and you're traveling with this stuff that is helping you to do these things. It's always a hard part in games to bring the supplies that your characters have into like the forefront of the game and to make them feel valuable and useful. But I think it's a nice thing to do. It's just hard to do it without ending up spending 20 or 30 minutes talking about your gear and measuring the weight of everything. Like, you want the supplies to feel impactful. You want the logistics of the campaign to be real, and you want to play on the logistical strategic layer as well as the tactical layer. But the managing the logistical and strategic layer is complicated and time-consuming and boring.
As it gets, a quarter,
we don't want that.
Across, you can wake up the next person and wake up the next person and rotate through. Does anyone?
Oh, I don't think we're rotating. I think it's just going to be two of us taking the watches. It sounds
two of you are gonna stay awake the whole night long?
No. I think Cassian's gonna stay awake, and then he's gonna wake up Vasher at some point.
Got it.
Vasher's gonna take the rest of the walk.
The soundtrack that you hear here is Down by the Sea off of Tabletop Audio. It's one of my favorites.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of gentle though.
It should be fine. You'll get about 5 to 6 hours of sleep. The sands are warm. They cool off pretty quickly. It gets a little bit uncomfortable, but not enough to degrade you to no rest. With rough rest, characters gain no penalties, gain no benefits, can spend no hit dice. Now, the rest system that we're bringing in here is to balance the game out a little bit. 5th edition is designed to have like 5 to 6 encounters before a long rest. A long rest is when you get all your HP and all of your abilities back. And that works really great if you're doing a whole bunch of encounters in one day, and then a long rest can be one night of sleep.
He's
So if you're doing
probably
dungeon
taking his
delving,
time
or if you're just in like a
to
really,
boss.
you know, high combat, high encounter per day of travel
Teacher.
sort of situation, which is sort of what
First
5e is
time to
designed
actually be
for.
able to come to grips that
But my
his teacher is
campaigns
dead,
don't really do that. My
and all of his
campaigns
friends in the boat
are
gone,
a
and
lot
now he's
slower
stuck here,
in that realm.
with this new group.
If you're traveling from one town to another, you might have an encounter along the way. And if you're trying to hunt down, you know, blah, 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 it might take you a couple days of traveling to get there. There might be an encounter on the way, maybe 2 encounters on the way, then maybe like 2 encounters in the course of finally hunting down the blah, blah, blah. And so we needed to find a way to slow down the healing rate. Otherwise, it's just I have all of my abilities and all of my HP available every battle. And
Well, after a little while, you will wake up the next person.
it becomes a little boring.
Vasher, you said?
You never have to worry about any resources. Spell slots are never a problem.
Same question to
It's
you, Vasher.
it's not great.
Now that
And so
alone
we
with thoughts,
introduced this
stand by
resting
the
system. We're going to go
beach.
back and look at it a little bit more closely here.
Teacher?
5 to 6 hours.
And so our resting system here is designed to give us some resource recovery and to make rest feel important. So we've got 5 rests, or technically 3 rests, a no rest, and a negative rest. A long rest is a week of downtime, which is a reasonable amount of time to regain all your HP. It's still really fast to recover from a mortal wound in a week, but it's the Age of Heroes. It's fine. And that's your traditional long rest. And that's a nice long week of chill, which sometimes players like, oh my God, a week of doing nothing. But also, you spend a little bit of money, you do a week of nothing. 10 seconds later, the week is over and you're at full all resources. Like, when you get down to it, it's really easy just to hand wave a week of time. The next condition is your classic short rest, but we're not going to just say any old night of sleep, right? Your short rest has to be meaningful. You actually have to rest. So that's why you'll see the headline of it be good night's sleep / short rest. And this requires a full night of quality sleep. Your environment is warm, dry, comfortable, and it's usually achieved in the comfort of an inn, a home, or camping in a safe condition with the appropriate gear. This means if you're traveling through the desert and you've got no gear whatsoever, you might not be able to get a short rest. You know, it might be cold, it might be windy, it might be rainy. You know, any number of things could be a problem, and you might not be able to get your proper rest. Maybe you don't have water, maybe you're out of food. We want to create rest as like a desirable goal. And so in order to recover any of your assets, you need like proper rest. And then because we need these conditions for your short rest, we have to now also include, well, what happens if you sleep but fail to achieve those conditions? Like, what if you get some rest, but it's not good enough to be a good rest? So that necessitates the need for the rough rest category, which is essentially no penalties. You know, you sleep, but it's not that great. You get some rest, but it's not that great. You're not going to gain anything, but you're not going to lose anything. But now if you do this, then the player's like, well, what if I just don't sleep? So now we have to say, well, hold on, you still need sleep. Even if you don't get good enough sleep to recover assets, you can't just not sleep. So we introduce the no rest category, in which case a character who gets no rest suffers 1 level of exhaustion. However, if you've ever done I'm just going to stay awake all night, you get tired. You fall asleep. And if you're a fan of history, you'll hear about people falling asleep on watch. It's a thing. And so we've included a mechanic where you need to pass a DC 10 wisdom save, or else you fall asleep when you're getting no rest. On the other hand, if you really, really want to make sure that you don't fall asleep, or you want to like march all night long, you should also be able to do that. And you shouldn't accidentally fall asleep while marching. So we introduced the negative rest / all-nighter. Really, these 3 rest states down here, the rough rest, no rest, all-nighter, are just the natural conclusions of having a short rest that is a good night's sleep. And so the negative rest or all-nighter is where you are active all night. Maybe you're pacing around your campsite, maybe you're marching, maybe any sort of activity during the night that's not, I'm just going to stay awake, but I'm not really doing anything, will give you 2 levels of exhaustion. So this rest system here is designed to give our players options for how they use their rest periods and then consequences for those options. And most of the time, like 90% of the time, our players are going to be getting good night's sleep or rough rest. And very, very rarely will we get someone who does no rest or an all-nighter. Exhaustion is kind of a bitch in 5e, getting disadvantage on ability checks for 1 level exhaustion. Not the worst thing. You know, a character can get no rest and travel the next day, and it's sort of fine. Not really a problem. But when you get 2 no rests in a row, 2 levels of exhaustion, your speed drops by half. And that is a problem. And so I don't think we're going to see a lot of 2 levels of exhaustion coming up. Sleep. But we might see a no rest and then a short rest and then a no rest and then a short rest. Because I think you get, on a short rest, you can spend your hit dice, you gain a hit die, and you recover 1 level of exhaustion. So you can no rest one night, good rest the next night, no rest the next night, good rest. And you can go back and forth like that. And then you'll be at like 1 level exhaustion, no exhaustion, 1 level of exhaustion, no exhaustion, kind of back and forth that way. Sands are warm. They cool off pretty quickly. Like it's a little bit uncomfortable, but not enough to degrade you to no rest. We're going to skip ahead again.
Dead or be killed.
I want resting. Resting is such an important thing. Everyone sleeps. Animals sleep. Plants even spend periods of sleep. You know, rest is a real thing, and you can't just ignore it. And therefore, resting rules should be important, and I want to make them feel important.
Still part of my crew, and I have an obligation to protect everyone around me if I can.
Very good of you. Well, the next day will come. It's bright, it's warm, it's light, and in a few hours, you can make it down towards the beach. Not the beach, the river. Bring us to another map. Not near where the river meets the sea. River. That place looks like a dangerous home. Skip.
Water. He is.
So here's our great river. Yep. You can't even see the other side.
Yeah, we all do.
There's crocodiles.
Well,
you can't swim across it. The river is a big deal. Those crocodiles? And this river is sort of inspired by all the great river civilizations of old. The Nile, the Indus, the Tigris, the Euphrates, the Yellow River. I can't pronounce the other one. 10 miles. The idea is that, early civilizations
so still a bit of a
all happened along these great rivers. Not all, but
no, the rivers.
Many of the great early civilizations happened along these really impressive river systems. And so, since we're in the very early days of Arcadia, I wanted to have our campaign deal with, early style civilizations, and I wanted a big great river. And the big great river also provides for some interesting interplay. Like it's deserts. And then, right along the river, it's actually kind of nice. You got trees, you got grasses, you got life happening.
Start drinking.
And then, desert that, it's just desert and wastelands. And it creates a narrow strip of survivability with hostility on either side, which I think is fun. The river's wide. There's a reason they call it the Great River. And from what you can see, just to your side, there's crocodiles in it. And since you've got time, and you're looking around, you look up and over, and you'll notice that there's also crocodiles. A great crocodile over here. It's huge. We've modified our standard 5e crocodiles quite a bit.
doesn't seem to
Won't
be a
be
threat in
bothering it
this
either, I
moment.
promise.
In the real world,
Absolutely.
crocodiles have what we
yeah,
call
right.
Really use
a
the leash.
crocodile
I'll say
death
to the
roll,
party.
which is where they grab
Not
onto
serious,
something and then they spin in a circle. And it is their most ferocious ability. They do this thing and it'll like rip your arm off. But in 5e and in 2e, crocodiles just have like a bite.
Fancy your chances
And
with
they kill
crocodile or
things by
stabbing
biting
them?
them over and over. And that's not how crocodiles actually operate. Crocodiles bite and then spin. And so we give our crocodiles a bite ability.
Now that's an idea.
And then when they bite, they
I'm
hold.
not that hungry yet.
And then on the subsequent round, they death roll. And their death roll is so strong. It makes the crocodiles a much more terrifying
fancy fighting any
adversary.
of these crocodiles.
And luckily, our
Say
players
that we,
don't fight
keep
them right
continuing down
now.
the river. There must be some
But
sort
if
of
they
bridge,
ever
some sort of
do
path.
fight one of these crocodiles, not even the
swim.
great crocodiles,
Worst
but even
case,
just the
we
little
can rough
mini
it another night with
crocodiles,
another day's
they're
worth
going to
of
be
rations.
in for some serious fun because them crocodile death
think we'll
rolls
get a
are
good night's
real,
rest with
yo.
water and
They will
warm
slaughter
sand.
you.
Should be good.
I'll turn to Roy and I'll say, Roy, what do you know about crocodiles?
Koibu, what do I know about crocodiles? I feel like I would have heard about them. They're probably in a bunch of stories. They were pretty popular. Although I guess in a world like this, they're a pretty boring monster, right? I don't know if people would really write stories about crocodiles.
I wouldn't say that to his
Normal
face.
crocodiles, you probably don't know too much about. But you
Yeah.
do know tales of the the greater river crocodiles of Arcadia. They are massive creatures.
Huge.
Why don't you give me a history check to see if you can what you know? Well,
You
we're
just
calling for a
know
lot of checks right now because we're trying to introduce our players to 5e
armored,
and how you have a set of
bite
skills
is
that we
absolutely
frequently rely
ferocious.
upon. They bite at +8 to hit, and they do 3d10 plus 5 on damage.
Oh my god.
And you also know of the famous crocodile death roll. This is why people know about the Greater River crocodiles. Once they bite
60,
you,
10
they
plus
will
5
then, like,
damage.
twist and turn and roll, and they'll rip your entire leg off real easy. Like they're super scary
DC
in that
18
regard.
strength saving throw.
I will relay this to the party, but I'm embellishing it with like way too many like comparisons to fucking stories and monsters you've never heard of. It's like the bite is stronger than this fucking thing, and you guys are what the fuck is he talking about? And it takes me about like 5 minutes
Look at
to
that.
relay all this to the party.
+8 to hit.
Yeah, looks like meat's off the menu.
Well, I the horse.
Now, granted, that damage is for the greater
No one
crocodile.
is
it's
eating
not
the
the
horse.
base
We
level
still have another
crocodile.
day's
We're
worth
talking
of
about like the
rations, and we can rough it
big
if we
crocs right here. The smaller crocs have a more gentle death roll.
I'm so hungry.
I think it's probably like 3D. I don't know what it is.
To try. You're not the first person to try to eat Scamp.
Let's find it.
He doesn't have unblooded hooves.
Say, Neal, look, do we think that which direction is
Let's
the
take a
town?
look
Is the
at
town
the-
on the river, but just 10 miles down on the other side?
Yeah. That's what it looks
so
like. You'd need to be
I-
closer. Like you're judging this based off like smoke rising over the horizon. So 10 miles is a very broad. The regular
to
crocodile
be a
does
crossing
D10 plus 2
between
for
here and the
damage, and its death roll is
Or
2d10
very
plus 2 for
town.
damage.
If we
We'll
make
find
it to the
it.
town,
The
they'll see us
greater
across the shore,
crocodile
and
There's
is
gotta be a
3d10
measure.
damage,
All right.
and the
Yeah,
death roll
10
is
miles, we can make
60-10.
that
So the
today.
death roll is just double damage,
Well,
essentially.
The horse needs to eat.
It's like an
I
auto
reckon We
crit.
can graze him for 2 hours, and if we all gather enough foliage, we can feed him on the move.
Actually,
Listen,
it's
Vasha,
literally
No one's
an
sitting
auto
on this
crit.
horse, so
But since it's
you
a
know, when I
saving
aim,
throw,
does he really use
um,
strength?
there's
Walk
no
for 10 miles,
opportunity
Connie.
for the death roll to
Next time
crit,
we're
so
in
it doesn't
fight, you'll
ever
understand
double.
why we're feeding the horse.
All right. If you say so.
So yeah,
Make sure
I'll,
it eats quick.
No, well, it takes. Well, a horse has to graze, right? So it takes about. A horse has to graze like 10 hours a day. So if we let the horse graze for 2, and we also gather up foliage for it, we can feed it on the move.
Now,
And
what
that
we're
way
talking
we
about
can cut
here,
down how long
horse
it
feeding mechanics are really interesting.
Makes sense. Okay, fine.
If you're a fan of history,
I take off my.
you'll know that the steppe peoples, the Huns, the Mongols,
Dip my
had great horse armies. And that the Western Europeans didn't really. Like later they had cavalry, like serious cavalry, but the serious cavalry was never the bulk of the army. The bulk of the army was always ground troops, with the noble, fancy people having the cavalry. And one of the reasons for this is that horses need to eat a lot. And if you live in the steppe, there's grass forever. And so you can bring your horses with you. You can bring huge herds of horses and they can eat wherever you want to go. But if you're cruising around what used to be very forested sections of Western Europe before all the forests were cut down, there's just not a lot of room to graze your horses. And so you couldn't have huge horse armies in Europe. By the same extension, the grasslanding horse peoples could never conquer Europe because, hey, there's just too many forests. You can't feed your horses. Eventually, they're just going to starve. Like, there's a limit to how far you can push into Western Europe because of the lack of grasslands. And so our character here has a horse, but we're traveling through a desert where there's not a lot of great feeding zones. Right here along the edge of the river, not a problem. Your horses do need a lot of time to graze. Like, they need a lot of time to graze. So bringing a horse into a desert was actually a very difficult thing. In the real world, there have been desert peoples who used a lot of horses, actually, quite a lot. But again, these weren't necessarily huge armies, and they were fed very carefully. I think you had I can't remember what it's called. There's some sort of like camel butter that you would feed your horses, but you had to like milk other things to produce this food that you could bring with you, and it was a pain in the butt. So horses in the desert, difficult thing. And this will continue to be a bit of a theme for us here. I was a little frustrated that the warhorse survived, because I knew that bringing the horse through the desert would be such a pain in the ass that in order to do it right, it would become a central theme of the campaign. And that's sort of what we've run into, is that keeping this horse alive is sort of a pain in the ass. And we haven't really seen a lot of benefit from it yet. We have seen some benefit, but not a ton. And as long as we're going through the deserts, and as long as we're going through the Badlands, the horse is going to be more of a liability than it is going to be of a benefit. When we get to the swamps, the horse is going to be more of a liability than it is going to be a benefit. Once we get to the grasslands, the horse is going to be great. And then when we get to the woods, one horse, probably not that big of a deal. There'll be enough grass to graze one horse. You're not bringing an army of horses with you into the forest. So one is not a big deal. So there will be narrow windows in the campaign where the horse is a huge asset. But for the most part, because there's a lot of desert and Badlands, the horse is going to be a liability. Which, the more of a liability it is, and the more they go out of their way to keep it alive, the more interesting that horse dynamic becomes. I don't really know where we're going with it yet. I would like to find a way for it to feel rewarding, or to tell us something about the characters.
So what we have that we are approaching is going to look a little bit
There's value to the horse.
like this.
We want to extract that value from the campaign.
Once the map, right side of the map, coming up along the river.
So here's our first bit of
What
civilization.
armor are they wearing?
It looks like they're just wearing clothing, like loose-fitting clothing. It's
They're not
pretty
wearing
hot
any
out here.
armor.
It would be
Fucking hell.
tough to wear armor in this environment.
Another one of our central themes. The environment is difficult.
We're gonna
You
need
can't
to
really wear
tell
armor
who's
here,
the
which is
talker.
awkward in 5th edition, because
I
bounded
immediately
accuracy of the
leap from
5e
an
combat
elfish.
system
Well,
really
you're
expects
seeing
you to
this from a bit
have
of a
some
distance.
armor.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
When enemies have a base attack value of 4 or 5, or usually,
He's a paladin after
if
all.
you have no armor, that means they're going to hit you on like a 6 or a 7 if you've got some dex. And if we look at our people's AC here, actually I think these values are wrong right now, but like if the enemy has +4 to hit, they will hit you on a 6, which means they are going to hit you all but 25% of the time. So if a 75% hit rate, it's really bad. It's like really, really frustrating to have a 75% hit rate against the players. the enemy is expected to have like a 40 to 50% hit rate against the players in the beginning of the game. So having a 75% hit rate is really tough.
I think this is a good time to establish the.
It's one of the weaknesses of 5e is that you need certain AC, otherwise the game gets out of hand.
I think.
And if you give too much AC, the game gets out of hand. You really need to like fit within a certain mechanical bound, and it's a little bit frustrating.
As Lady Lazarus' squire, I would be fairly highly ranked in the expedition, although I'll kind of look around at the party and I'll say, I don't know if we're much of an expedition anymore.
I mean,
this is
let's
more
not
like a group of
forget who.
survivors.
Let's not forget whose family gave money for the expedition.
We are King Arthur's only hope, it seems, until we
When
get
it
those
come-
people who were dragged away.
King Arnold.
So I think we are the expedition. King Arnold, sorry.
When it comes to matters of spending money, Roy, you'll be consulted first. But when it comes to keeping us alive, I'll be taking the reins. And on that note, I'll get on my horse.
All right. Now, you'll see that there is a series of buildings, and then there are some large obelisks that are spaced to sort of provide a makeshift wall around here. We're coming alongside the river. Are you?
I wanted to create a feeling of a city on the rise,
Want to come down?
I think
not like a fully developed city. So this outpost doesn't have walls. They've positioned their buildings to kind of create choke points, and then they've got these obelisks to help create choke points, but they're not full-fledged walls yet.
the honest doorway, if that makes sense. I don't want to look like I'm sneaking in.
Yeah, absolutely. As the party approaches, it's clear
We're early days in the
guards,
world,
The archers
you know?
up on the wall will have spotted you, and they will whistle and call over some soldiers down on the ground and give you a watch as our party approaches. And you'll see the honest way is up on the north side. So I'm going to drop your tokens over here. And you can go ahead and arrange yourself for how you would like to approach the front gate.
Sounds like Vasher is going to take the lead by
Yeah.
far and away.
Let him go ahead, and the three of us can just go behind.
I'll ride forward to about here, and I will attempt to call out to the guards. I'll say, hail.
Now, these guards are all
Hail!
essentially
What
the same unit. We've got one token for the archer version and one token for the spear version, but it's the same hit die. It's the same thing. There is a lead guard unit
Who are you?
who I think shows up, but I don't think the players ever talk to the lead guard. Maybe they do very briefly. Who is a real soldier who's got good stats. And this is the introduction of our sort of age of heroes where you've got like the
I'll just
dude,
do like a formal introduction.
and then you've got like the dude's minions. And right now we're just talking to the dude's minions.
We'll add the Waystar. Yes.
We come from a land that is a long way away from here. I believe. Have you heard of the Storm Tide Kingdom? I'll wait for an answer.
No.
Let's see if I can find the dude's stats.
Well, you take a boat a really long way that direction, and I'll kind of point out to sea.
Abelar Warrior.
Our ship crashed here. We have no money. We have no food, and we're kind of relying on you guys to get us out of a really bad
The
situation.
Abelar Warrior has high dex, 16 dex, a shield, and leather armor because he gets to hang out indoors all the time.
look at the
And
party.
he doesn't like show up until he
Look at the
puts on his
horse.
armor. Or if he takes off his
Hey, look
armor, his
at
AC is
this,
only 14. So he's got
paladin
actual
fellow.
AC.
you give
He's
me
got
a
+6 to hit.
Persuasion check here, Mr. Paladin.
Because he is high enough level to have a proficiency
Can I get
bonus of
help?
+3.
So it's at normal.
And he does d6 plus
As
3
this
damage with his
little lull
Kolpesh.
in the conversation, I'll just walk a few steps
And
forward.
he's got a
behind the horse, and I
multi-attack
sort of
that
whisper
makes
up to
2 melee
Basher
attacks
and
with the
say,
Kolpesh
"I could
and
kill
1
someone's-
shove with their
I
shield.
could heal someone
And,
if that wounded.
you know, as you've
famous.
seen, I'm a big fan of the shove mechanics. I think they're great.
yeah. I don't know.
Historically,
I'll kind of
knocking someone down is a really good way to fight someone. We have like the expression like, and then the kingdom fell, or that, and then he fell.
tell Michelle
The idea of
so
someone
much I'm
falling
Really hungry.
and like that being their downfall comes from a little bit of combat on the battlefield where if you fall down, you're fucked. If a knight falls from his horse,
I will also kind of.
it's a big deal because once you're on the ground, you're just going to get beaten down and you're just going to die. Like, you're screwed at that point once you fall down. And so, shove mechanics in 5e, when someone's prone, you get advantage to hit them. And so, I want to introduce a lot more shove options in the game, which are super
new people,
fun.
New place. You're kind of looking towards the sun a little bit right now. Actually, that's not even remotely true. The sun's behind your back. But, you know, they've got these big shields, which are glossy and gleaming and glinting in your eye, and you've been dealing with Roy all day long, and your patience is, like, this thin. So it's hard to get a quick judgment on them. But do make me a persuasion check. No penalties, no advantages. Just
Sure.
what are your words like here?
I say to them.
Actually, these Avalar guards,
that,
they're kind of trash
we're
units.
important characters
They've
where
got
we can
13
help.
strength,
If you help
12
us,
dex,
we can.
and only a proficiency bonus of 2.
We'll be able to
So they
save
only got
goals
+3 on their
and
attack,
figure-
and they do d6 plus 1 damage. But they do have a parry ability, which gives them 2 to its AC against 1 melee attack that would hit it. To do so, the guard must see the attacker and be shielding a melee weapon or shield. Maybe that should say wielding a melee weapon or shield.
We're the soldiers that keep the bandits at bay. You don't seem to be bandits, so you're welcome into the area. But
So the
I
guards
can't
kinda
give you any
suck,
food or water.
But they do have a shield and
bed.
12 dex,
But you're
so they've
welcome
got
to
13
come on
AC,
into the town.
so they're much better than the player
You point
characters.
us to the
Passes
nearest
to a
inn.
town.
They got 17 hit points.
Yeah, they will point
their
you
attack and
to
damage is
this
trash.
building, down here.
But the survivability is good. And that's sort of the point.
Um,
The guards are meant for
It's
survivability,
not much of an inn,
not
it's
necessarily
actually
for
just a
offense.
tea house.
I also ask him, how do we get across the river to the other town?
Some boats come by every now and then. You can pay someone some money.
This right
across
here,
over to the next
The
town.
getting across the river is intended to be a bit more difficult.
You don't really know where you are, do you?
I want to introduce our players to this, great civilization, different area, new people, strange land. We want it to feel tough, We want it to feel difficult.
You will say that in
And we want them to have to sort of get some money together to get across the river. We don't want them just to stroll into Abelar. And so as they sort of navigate the situation here, they're going to start realizing what things are different here than they might expect back home. Our players don't really know anything about their homeland. Their characters might come from the Stormtide Kingdom, but our players don't come from the Stormtide Kingdom. And so what we're doing is we're trying to create like a fish out of water. And so we're assuming our characters' expectations are the same as our players' expectations. And so in order to subvert our characters' ideas of norms, we are going to have to subvert our players' ideas of norms. And so
they're talking about her
part
like
of the strangers in a strange land is to start showing them all of these different world expectations.
What do you know about people
They
who
want to
buy
get to the other side of the river. Oh, well, someone can just take us on a boat.
saw
That should be an easy thing. We're used to ferries. I lived in San Francisco for a while. You could take a ferry all over the place. If you're in the UK or in France and you want to get, from one side to the other, there's a bridge that goes, a tunnel that goes under there. There's boats that go across. There's short little commuter flights. It's all very, very easy to get around.
Come inside.
Here, though,
Please sit down.
we want to
You don't have
create
any
like
point to
a
say.
very
You
different
should
expectation.
probably get
And
the
so
hell out of here.
transportation is going to be one of those things that's a little bit
twice.
different. That it's a really
I'll
easy
ask them if they have
expectation to
something
subvert.
put the horse in.
The boat that they're going to come across a little bit later is going to charge them an enormous amount of money, a ridiculous amount of money, which technically they could pay to get across the river. And our players are going to be a little bit shocked by the cost of this. And there's two reasons for this here. Actually, there's like 3 reasons. The first reason is that subverting of expectations and showing them that things are operating a little bit differently here,
Yeah, we'll wait for the
and
time to go
their
their way.
base understandings of how things work might not always apply, and they might have to, run it. They're going to run into unexpected
Is there
problems.
like a little bit of grass along the river?
The second thing to show them is that like we want you to make some money, right? Your loot is a resource. We want you to gain loot so that you can spend loot, so that you can overcome problems. Like let your finances be a tool to use. And right now you're broke ass bitches, and broke ass bitches don't get shit, right? And our third reason is to sort of underscore the dangers present. These people are not really wanting to take the party because the party could be a threat. The guards, when the party was talking to them a moment ago, were mentioning that we're here to protect against bandits, and the route that they didn't take earlier was to lead to more bandits, and their friends who also washed up on beach were taken by bandits, right? And so the idea that, well, we are random people who have weapons and a warhorse, let's just hop on your boat. People are gonna be, whoa. I don't trust you on my boat. I don't know you. I'm taking a risk by bringing you onto my boat. And so, in order to compensate for that risk, I'm gonna need a lot of money. And so they get charged an exorbitant fee to cross. And that comes back to this Age of Heroes area. And we're gonna see it a little bit later. Abelar has like strict rules within the city walls, but then no rules outside of the city walls. And it's creating this sense of danger, or things that we don't know about are dangerous. If you're out of the city walls and you run across somebody, they could be a bandit, they could be a murderer, they could be a thief, they could be a nice person, but you don't really know. And so you have this innate untrusting of strangers. This is something that in the modern age, we don't really feel very much, but it was a real thing back in the day. In the modern age, I can hop a plane to Germany, and I can walk around Germany in confidence and walk into places and get services and talk to folks, and then hop a train to Spain and do the same there, and fly over to Thailand, don't speak the language, and cruise around, and I can feel safe and unconcerned about these things. And the people who see me showing up be like, hey, here's a dude. He's fine. We don't have to worry about him. But in the olden days, that wasn't quite the same situation. In the olden days, you kind of lived in a place. I know olden days covers a large period of time, so bear with me here. You would live in a place, and you'd live with people you knew, and your relationships with people were the framework through which society functioned. So if you were to just fuck off and visit a new place by yourself and show up with no introductions and you don't know anybody, you would be like a weird stranger floating through a village. We're not talking about cities yet. You'd be like a weird stranger floating through a village and people wouldn't know you. Why don't you have people? Why don't you have contacts? We don't know you. You could attack me, take my stuff, and disappear, and there'd be nothing I could do about it. The modern world has a lot of security, a lot of precautions and safeguards. So if somebody does drift through town and cause trouble and drift on, we can track them down, we can find them, we can bring them to justice. And so that threat of strangers floating through towns and stealing things and then floating away is a lot lessened, but not in this age. And so there is an inherent distrust of strangers. If you want to talk to somebody, if you want to get a favor done, you should probably get an introduction. It's about who you know, not necessarily what you know. And that's one of the central themes that I always try to introduce to my campaigns. But it's really hard to get modern players to jive with the old world functioning of, if I don't know you, I don't trust you. Because in the modern world, there's an inherent trust of any random person that you might run into. If you see somebody walking down the street and you don't know them, you're not concerned about it because you don't know most people walking down the street because you live in a town of 100,000 people or 1 million people. And you might know your neighbors, maybe, but I don't know the neighbors 2 doors down from me in either direction. I know the neighbors on one side and I know the neighbors on the other side, but I don't know the neighbors across from me. And that's kind of fine. And we can operate like that because we have an inherent trust of the people around us. And that's not the way the old world worked. The old world worked, you knew everybody in your little village by name and by face, And if there was somebody who you didn't know, you didn't trust them. And it's hard,
doesn't look like it's completed. There's
very hard
on one side. There's a
to bring that feeling of
completely walled in, and then like the in progress being built around that. And in the
you have
heart
to
of
establish
what we're gonna
trust
call the
with
new
people
city, which is
into a
still being
D&D
walled in,
game.
is a great ziggurat.
It's hard to
of a
recognize,
pyramid.
and
all
it's
around
hard
that
to
is,
impart
tons of
onto
towns
people
and
who
levels,
don't already
buildings,
have the
houses,
expectation
whatnot, so there's maybe,
of
like, a Colosseum
stranger danger,
too.
you know?
It's pretty far away. It's hard to tell exactly what's what. And while you're gazing at all of this, presumably not really interested in talking to any of the people that are here, you will see a boat lazily making its way across the river this evening, this late afternoon, being pulled by what looks to be 50 or 60 people, 30 on each side with a pole, pushing into the river and slowly making the boat come across. It does have a sail that is set as well, but the pulls help it come more quickly.
Is this boat big enough for a horse?
Yes, it's a very large boat.
Brilliant.
Cassian will rouse the party. Hey, I think our boat's about
All right,
to
here it comes.
I forgot my stick. Thank you.
Well, skip ahead a little bit. And everyone seems to be very busy, and immediately they start grabbing things out of warehouses, putting them in these hand carts, and then trucking them back up the docks, dumping them on the boats, and then coming around, and it's just a quick and highly efficient hustle and bustle. There's a person standing near one of the scribes. We haven't mentioned it, but these people are slaves yet.
Papyrus style.
Or we haven't mentioned it yet, but these people doing this hustling, bustling are slaves.
More quickly, the sun's gonna set. We're behind schedule already. And they
Cassian
seem
will
to,
go with him.
yeah, perfect.
We're looking for a venture cross for me and my 3 friends and a horse. How much would this cost?
The guy looks at you. We're not a transport boat for people.
Here we go, subverting
We don't
their
take passengers.
expectations.
How much would it cost?
10 gold a head, including the horse.
I'll do 5.
Nope. Yeah, you.
Let
Come on,
me-
come on. Sun's coming down. Hurry up, everybody.
I'll call up Vasher. Vasher. He wants 10 gold a head to get across.
10 gold a
Each-
head. It's practically free to take us. How much gold does this land produce that merely letting us on your boat costs so much?
Is this directed at the man?
That's directed at the man, yeah.
Yeah. He looks over at you. We don't take passengers. It's not the money, it's the risk. I don't know who you are. You could be spies. You could be sorcerers. You could be enchanter. Who knows who you are?
I am Roy Waystar
Um,
of the Waystar family, actually. And if I tell my dad how you guys treat the people here,
I'll start talking to try to interrupt him because he's about to threaten these guys. I'll say, what he's meaning to say is, we come from a faraway land, and we are nobles, in fact, in that land. And helping us out carries actually quite a helpful reward.
I'm sure.
Obviously,
yes, of course.
we have been allowed into this area here. These men
I don't know
kill
if that's
bandits
coming
on
across,
sight,
but this
so
guy's speaking
obviously we're not
sarcastically.
bandits.
Faster. Get it faster. Come on, move. Uh-huh. Yeah.
If we help you move the stuff onto the boat faster, will you let us go?
You do not touch my goods. Absolutely not. This ore is absolutely needed, and I will not have you getting in the way of any of my operations. Look, either you have the money or you don't. If you're so fancy and powerful and have all the wealth and you have the faraway stars family or whatever, you should have some wealth on you, right? Where are your golden rings? Where are your necklaces? Where's your...
We were in a shipwreck and we were caught in the middle of the night, so we lost basically everything we have. But what we do have...
Man, is a sob story. God, do you know how many sob stories I hear? Look, you can pay up or you can go out there and find someone else who will listen to your bullshit. Come on, man.
There's more than one way. There's more than one ways to pay a debt. Do you have any work on the other side that you could use us for?
Nope, not unskilled, untrained people who I don't know and don't trust. I'm not looking to take on more responsibilities here.
Will you
Do you
take
see how
payment in
effectively
the
my
form
crew
of-
operates?
So this right here is that sort of... Things aren't necessarily going to be easy. you might be fancy pantsy people from where you come, but right now you are unknown, untrusted, you're nobodies, and no one's going to stick their neck out for you. No one's going to go out of their way to help you unless they know something about you. And this is sort of setting the seeds for our Age of Heroes concepts. Now, thus far in the campaign, I've done a pretty bad job of setting up the fame aspect. Fame is something I want to play up more, and in the last session, we started to do so. It's called the Age of Heroes for a reason. People know who heroes are, and heroes can get a lot of things by reputation. If the party builds their reputation and are known quantities, then people are going to be more likely to help them. It's not just your money that's an asset, your reputation is an asset. And right now they have no reputation. All they have are their words. Oh, somewhere else we're somebodies. You should help us. No one's going to believe that shit. If you were somebody of note, we would know about you. And if you're somebody to somebody else, we don't really care about that. And so this is the setting, the initial planting of you need to be a known quantity if you want special treatment.
They're quite good. I'll say that to him. Do you perhaps take on a debt? We could pay you half now and half later.
And have you just disappear in the city the moment I take you across? How am I supposed to collect on a debt? Ridiculous.
Well, I'm sworn to uphold law and order, so I would lose my powers if I didn't fulfill my debt, and I'll cast Lay on Hands on myself to prove that I'm a paladin.
Ooh, how much HP are you going to expend?
I
think
don't
you
know.
have up to, is it 10? Is it 5 per level that you get?
Yeah, I'll heal myself to 4, so I'll use 6.
Okay. He will stop and actually look on an interest as you heal your own wounds that way. Well, you're not nobodies. That right there, healing himself using magic, is the first step of like showing off who you are.
I am a paladin, not yet sworn to a god, and we are skilled fighters, capable companions.
All right, I'll take your horse. The 4 of you can come for free.
I'll laugh at him. Say the horse is worth more than his weight in gold.
Well, I don't know what to tell you, buddy. Sounds like I have everything that you need, and you have nothing that I need. So,
give him the horse, man.
Actually, let's just wait for another boat. There's passenger ships that come along.
My dad will buy you a stable when we get back home, okay? Full of horses.
This is my horse. I don't want a stable full of horses.
well, all right. I'll give you some advice. Because I feel sorry that you have to put up with that guy. And because the DM wants to impress upon the party how the mechanics of this sort of thing are going to work, and there's not necessarily going to be another boat that comes by. Like, let's cut to the chase and explain things more directly.
I look at Cassian and like nod.
You seem to be some sort of holy warriors, all right? Now, see these guards around here? The reason there are guards here is because there are bandits. And bandits, they tend to raid things and steal things. Now, you can walk up the river along this coast, and you'll come to another town in a couple of days from here, and you'll just be able to walk right in. You won't have to cross the river or anything like that. Or, you can go out, find some bandits, kill them, take all their shit, come back here, and hopefully have enough money to get across the river. Or, he looks across. Which one of you rolled the good best hotness?
Roy.
Oh, this gets dark. Roy, you rolled 15, right? Oh.
Mm-hmm.
He looks at Roy. You could sell that one into slavery if you want. And he could probably fetch something over in the brothels on the other side of the river.
Maybe just for a night. I look at Roy.
He shrugs.
I'll give Sturmer a very sharp look at when he says that.
Yeah.
No? You don't want to sell your horse? You don't want to sell your boy? Sounds like you don't have anything else.
The one thing I do have, friend, is I'm a cleric. I could heal someone's wounds. My powers are almost expended, but perhaps that could pay for my trouble.
So in this campaign, I don't think I've mentioned this many times.
Queen
We
Priestess-
see these
the Queen
desert
Priestess
land
has
people
healing.
doing a
Her
lot
clerics
of
have
human
healing. There's no
trafficking.
need of healing on the other side
And we're
of the river.
doing
Have you never been
a
to
lot
Avalar?
of
Avalar
free
is the
healing,
golden city, my
and
friend.
we're doing a
The
lot
priests
of
run the place,
unusual
and
things.
Sickness is gone. Injuries are
Some of these
gone.
things are pretty dark and
Fabulous
terrible.
place.
And we
You're
wanted our
done
players
with
to
us
be a
when you're
little
a
bit
kid.
fish out of water, like you're in a new land, you don't really know what's going on. Oh, look, they're doing this barbaric practice. One of the things that Good King Arnold was known for was upending this practice. And we want to impress upon them that, we really do want Good King Arnold to come back. We really want Good King Arnold because, God, by all the gods, he was a good king. He did end this terrible practice. And so we are letting our players see this terrible practice in the flesh. And the reason we're going, there's a lot of things. If we wanted to show that our king is good, we could have taken any number of good deeds and then shown them the bad deeds. And we went with this, this most horrible of ancient human practices, because it is something that is so long lived. From the very first written records up through the mid 1800s, people all over the world practiced slavery for, what is that, 10,000 years ish? And it has such a deep history in the world, and it is such a common thing in the ancient world. And it's something that in very recent times we have decided is horrific and should not be done. And I don't mean to say that it existed in every place in the ancient world, at every time in the ancient world. There were some places and some times where it didn't exist, or it could have existed, but it just didn't happen to exist. And it's one of those features of ancient societies that is it's one of the backbones of ancient societies that we'd like to not look at very much. When we talk about ancient Rome, we talk about the glory and the might of the ancient Roman Empire, but we don't talk about the fact that the Romans were going around and murdering people. We talk about Roman conquests, but we don't talk about the facts that the Romans would go conquer an area, kill a fifth of the population, enslave a fifth of the population, and then the rest of the population would be taxed by, we would say taxed, but the tax mechanism of the Roman Empire was you hire a group of people who says they can extract X amount of taxes from a region, and then they get paid by whatever else they can extract. So someone says, we can extract $1 million in taxes from this region. The Romans say, great, bring us $1 million. And then those people go and extract as much wealth as they can from that region and give the Romans the million. So they have to extract 1.2 million. They keep the 200,000. They pay the Romans the million. And one of the great things of winning battles, and one of the reasons that you would go to war to make money is because in war you would capture humans and you would bring them back and you would sell them, and that was a huge source of money back in the day. And when we talk about history, we really, really, really gloss over this aspect because no one likes to talk about it. And it sort of ruins all of our historical figures that we sort of look up to. And it's awful. And we really just look the other way on this issue. And so we'll bring it up here because we're looking at ancient Arcadia. And I wanted to draw on some of the ancient evil practices that would feel very uncomfortable to our players, and then would also give our players a good reason to resurrect Good King Arnold. Because if they succeed, they're going to get a scroll of resurrection. And it's very likely that one character might die, or 2 or 3 characters might die along this storyline, or maybe even die in the final battles getting the scroll of resurrection. And I really, really, really want our characters to feel like they should go and resurrect Good King Arnold with this scroll. If Vasher dies, if Roy Waystar dies, I want the remaining characters to be like, you know what? We really do need to bring back good King Arnold. And so we're going to try to make them feel why good King Arnold is such an important character. We don't get to see good King Arnold. We don't get to hear him talk. We don't get to see his actions. All we get to know is that, like, he has undone the horrible practices of the land we're in. And so I'm trying to sort of hit them with some really horrible practices. So the boatmen casually being like, just sell your boy into sexual slavery like it's an ordinary common thing is an effort to introduce our players into the reason why you want to resurrect good King Arnold. Because that's a pretty fucking awful thing to do. And it's a pretty freaking awful thing to, like, casually be, like, super comfortable with. Like, oh, yeah, just sell him into a brothel. It'll be fine. Then you can get across the boat, across the river, you know?
Molest me, and I'm stuck here with 3 brutes, and it's not how I thought this would go.
I'll pick up my scimitar and I'll hold it to my chest and I'll say, I swear, Roy, no one will molest you while I still draw breath.
You will not be molested here, Roy.
I do feel a little...
You should be so lucky. I can't be doing listening to you guys.
Sometimes, as a DM, I do struggle with introducing these difficult aspects to society. The point is to make our players feel uncomfortable. But, you know, sometimes in an effort to make people feel like this world is kind of shitty and you really want to resurrect good King Arnold, it gets even uncomfortable for me. And the point is to generate some discomfort, but sometimes it generates more discomfort than I feel comfortable with. I think in the next session, or maybe it's the third session, they actually go to the flesh markets. And that was... I don't really struggle as a DM with scenes very often. But that one was... having to improvise, because I didn't plan ahead for it. Having to improvise the sale of human flesh was tough. I don't often feel yucky doing things that I do, but sometimes I do.
All life here, but you have no idea where that is. It's somewhere on this landmass. Well, that's not true. Roy would know that it's somewhere on the north side of the continent.
So we're on the wrong side of the fucking continent.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, here's what we need. We need food, we need water, and we probably need a few more horses. You can get your pint when we get to the city.
I hope so.
We need money. Now, I'm not for killing random people. However, I do believe that law should be followed. So, if
we're going to skip ahead. Players essentially decide that they're going to try and get to the next town. And then I think they rest here, they gain some HP and stuff, they spend some money, blah, 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 blah.
Keep food with the...
How about we wait, Lee?
Blah, blah, blah. Rest. Talk to some guards, look at the night sky, talk amongst themselves.
Way of the world, even in the Stormtide Kingdom.
I think, hold on, this is maybe a good bit right here.
Yeah, and I'll carry my own rations in a small
So I'll carry 8 rations then.
All right. Buy some gear. Not that interesting.
Right?
We've already talked about how important, how gear should be important and how you're going to have to carry your food. You're going to have to carry food for your horse in.
So as we
logistical problems of bringing your horse with you.
Along the river, I think it's only natural for the conversation of how these people are dealing with each other to come up, because one of the great things that King Arnold did, as we heard Mr. Mooten mention earlier, is that he slowly whittled away and finally abolished slavery in the Stormtide Kingdom. But over here, these people are eager for it, absolutely eager for it. In fact, now that you're thinking about it, those people of yours that were dragged away, that's probably what they're going through right now. Either being sold or getting ready to be sold. How does this sit with the people from the Stormtide Kingdom?
Well, go ahead.
You're so
It
polite.
doesn't really bother me so much. I not really care too much for the laws of the land, so to speak. I mean, I don't think people should be sold into slavery, but that's human nature.
Mm-hmm. And you're old. You were around back when that was the way of the world, even in the Stormtide Kingdom.
I mean, I was
were.
raised in a church having to work to get meager food rations, so it's not quite slavery, but it's not that far away. And his relationship with the military is not particularly
That's true.
that
You were
different either.
voluntold for the military.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
kids these days, I'm like a boomer who doesn't want people to have student loan forgiveness because I had to pay my student loans back.
Right.
Not really, but sort of a little bit deep down.
Right. You grew up with the hard times. You expect that from the world, and so you're happy to. Yeah.
Kids these days.
What about the rest of you?
The Waystar family is a little more forward-thinking, a little more liberal. We think that, obviously there is a class of people that are meant to work, but maybe they should be paid so they can, not stand up and kill us all.
I don't know if he is pulling from historical reasonings here, but during the colonial era and during the mid to end of the slave trade era, that was one of the larger arguments that was being used to end slavery. In some places, people were looking around and being like, oh, look, the population of slaves is like 80% and the population of slave owners is like 30%. And if we don't do something and things continue in this way, one day they're just going to kill us all. Oh, shit. Maybe we need to start fixing this before they murder us all. And that was a very legitimate argument. And when that argument wasn't listened to, you had things like the revolutions in Haiti. I can't remember the old name for Haiti. Where the slaves did rise up and brutally slaughter a whole bunch of the slave owners and overtake the lands. And then the French had to, put down the rebellions, and then the rebellions were taken up again. And at the end of the day, the French were looking at that shit being like, okay, if we put down these rebellions, it's going to take a lot of soldiers. And then the British are just going to come and take this land from us, and then they're going to get it. So maybe we should listen to these people, grant them their freedom, make them French citizens, and so that way we can protect our island and the British don't take it. And so one of the reasons the French ended up abolishing slavery, at least in their Pacific holdings or Atlantic holdings, was so that they wouldn't all get killed. And so that the British wouldn't come and then take their lands, because all of their people there would have been like fighting, and their forts would have been destroyed and their ammo would have been gone and the soldiers would have been killed. And we can't let the British take our lands. So we're going to free our slaves rather than be so weakened by these slave uprisings that the British can come and take our good shit. And that's sort of underselling the importance of Haiti at that point in time, which was like a huge sugar producer, and sugar at that time was like such a huge commodity that you wouldn't even understand it in modern terms. That's almost like the modern oil. It was such an important commodity. And so Haiti was like a huge resource trading point for them. But the idea that you want to treat your workers well before they rise up and kill you is a major historical argument for abolishing these practices. And I don't know if Jan, I don't know how much he's pulling from history versus just improvising reasons on the spot, but that is a hyper realistic reason. How about you, Paladin?
Speaking as someone who is fully bought into the new order of the Stormtide Kingdom, I find the thought of our comrades being sold into slavery as utterly disgusting, and the fact that we didn't do something about it weighs heavily on my mind. And the idea of capturing bandits and selling them into slavery instead of bringing them to some sort of justice doesn't sit well with me either. I think everything about this place feels like an alien and repugnant place. It kind of makes...
That's what we're
if I
going
was
for.
a cat, my hair would be standing on end, if that makes sense.
At least the alien, not necessarily repugnant.
Yeah.
Cassian isn't he's not angry. He's more disappointed and sad that these type of places still exist. And he feels genuine like sorrow for like the little affect that man had on his face when he was just talking about selling people, human beings, into slavery. So he walked away from that encounter just sad that he's in one of these types of lands.
Yeah.
But he's even more determined now to bring Arnold back to
And that's what we
stop
want.
this.
We want that determined to bring
different
Arnold back.
World than your characters are used to. But it's also the law of the land here, and it's something that you're inevitably going to encounter, probably along with other differences from your homelands. Hopefully they won't all be so horrific, but
This
I think
inadvertently is going to bring up a really interesting concept and an interesting storyline, which I've been, once it's been brought up in this campaign, I've been thinking a lot about lately, which is how does one exist when they're in a land with which they strongly disagree with the rules? Because for a lot of human history, a lot of people have existed in lands that were either their own or other lands, where they didn't really agree with what was going on. And how do you exist when the rules of society are things that you find completely unjust? At a certain point, there is sort of I just have to get along. And how do we handle, as people, getting along and making our way through a society where things are really awful? And our players, especially like in a normal campaign, maybe the storyline becomes they're going to turn the world up on its head and change the world for the better. But for our characters, they're just passing through this area. They're not going to stick around and overthrow the Arcadian world order. They're here for a specific mission, and they just need to like get through this area. But there's going to be shit that they really don't like as they're going through here. They're going to see a lot of slavery. They're going to see a lot of banditry. They're going to see lawless lands where people are waiting outside of city gates to kill you, and they can just wait out there for as long as they want because no one's going to stop them other than you. So it's going to be, hopefully, if I do my job well, it will hopefully be an interesting side story to see how our people navigate fucked up social situations when they're not going to stick around long enough to solve it. If they get involved and try to change things, but then they leave again, they might just make things worse for the very people that they're trying to help. If they go and take a whole bunch of money and buy all the slaves in Abelar and then release them all and then just leave, well, they're probably just going to get re-enslaved right away. Maybe they'll just get captured on the spot. Maybe they'll just get run down and killed. Like, it's not actually going to make a real difference. So, what is the ethical thing to do in a situation like that? How much do you get involved, or how much do you stay out of the way? Because if you get involved, you might make things worse.
Google sheet that nobody cares about. Okay, tab back in. Do one thing for us. Click the goddamn subscribe button, all right? See you guys after the break. Jesus.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Save or Die.
Right. The journey continues along.
All right, so we're going to continue a little bit more.
It would be a lengthy process.
Skip.
I think you have them wrong. It should be 16.
16. Okay, yeah, my passive perception's 30.
Excellent. Okay.
So these are the perception rolls.
We're going to make this roll.
So what we've got going on here is some bandits who are ambushing the party. And the bandits have had time to prepare this ambush. And so we're using bandit rolls of stealth versus the party's passive perception. And the bandits roll really, really well.
And holy shit. Holy shit.
Like, really well.
All right. Bad luck, boys.
Very bad luck for the party.
And there's just this line of foliage. And maybe there's like a crocodile out in the river or something, or maybe like you can hear the sound of something blowing across the river from somewhere else. But for some reason, in this moment in time, you are all distracted, and it's not until it's too late that you realize you're not alone here. It's not until someone calls out that you realize there's a whole troop of bandits, archers, and then...
So here our bandits have rolled well on surprise, and our party has low... Well, they've got decent passive protection, but I think we made them roll... The bandits roll at disadvantage for their surprise roll because they got their camels, and there's some cover behind this spot that you can see right here. And essentially what they're doing is they roll their surprise to move from their cover spot when they see the party coming up to this position, and they do so. And then when they get to this position, it's the party noticing them, and everything's about to go nutso here. And we could talk at length about what is the best way to roll surprise and to roll ambushes for these sorts of situations. We're not going to, but we could.
And then one melee guy up in front, all on camelback, that have accosted you. They've like stopped here. The bowmen all have bows drawn, arrows notched, attacks readied. And the one leader in front, the one who, alerts you to the fact that you're in a little bit of trouble, calls out and says,
"This is a tough battle.
Put down your weapons, surrender your horse, and you can come peacefully. Otherwise, be prepared to be pincushions, and whatever remains of you will be sacrificed."
So our party's in bind. And as a DM, I'm not necessarily trying to kill the party in this situation. We're just trying to set up the fact that these are dangerous lands when you're outside of civilized areas. People are preying on you. There's not a lot of you. There's a lot of them. We've got a hero with a bunch of minions. I mean, a hero. He's a bandit. He's a villain. You could call this age the age of heroes and villains. And it's a tough spot. What's the party going to do? They could surrender and then try to escape or find their way out, which is a tactic I don't often see parties do, but does make for fun gameplay, or would make for fun gameplay, is to be like, okay, we surrender and just give themselves up and then wait for an opportune moment when they are like captives to attack their enemy when you're in melee range. Right now, look at the distance between them. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's like 15 tiles, maybe 20 tiles. So that's a long way to go to meet your enemy who are mounted with bows. So if you surrender, you might give up your weapons, but then you'll at least be adjacent to your enemies. And then maybe you can get your weapons enemies or their camels or something. But the party in this situation and every other situation I've ever played in never wants to surrender. Even though I think it might be the right tactical move to make sometimes.
I'm hiding behind everyone.
Sacrifice to what?
Does it matter? You'll be dead.
It does matter to me, yes.
Sacrifice to the gods.
Which one?
The only important question, I'll interrupt, is do we get to live if we listen to what you say?
Certainly. Come, lay down your arms, and I promise you a good life in the city of Abelar.
As slaves.
I'll turn to Cassian and ask him, does he feel like being a slave?
No, I don't think I do today.
Mr. Mooten's so good.
Yeah, I'm going to roll for initiative and I'm going to
Yep.
Engage.
The archers will release their readied shots.
I throw my
and-
stick on the floor and put my hands.
Keep in mind, we're in some tree cover, right?
Yep. Did I hear that right? You drop your stick?
I drop my stick, put my hands in there.
Great. The archers will not fire at you.
Thank you.
They will fire at everybody else. So we have 1, 2, 3,
I'm
4,
gonna like
5.
duck behind a tree.
Am I even holding anything?
No.
Why are they firing at me? I didn't do anything.
We're gonna get 3 shots at the guy on the horse, 2 shots at the big burly guy, and 2 shots at the young one.
And these attacks do
starting with the
so
young
well.
One,
Oh my
children
god.
First.
20.
20.
Oh,
Oh,
one second.
Oh my
Oh,
god.
man.
Wait, you're killing? Oh my god.
Wait, can I? Okay,
What?
can I cast shield?
Yes.
I think we should roll for initiative here, Koibu.
No, right there. The roll for initiative. This is 5e, and readied actions and ambushes are all really, really hard to do. The mechanics don't make for them very well. I like the idea of a bunch of archers holding an attack until someone says fire, and then them all launching a volley of arrows at the same time. That makes a lot of sense to me. I like the imagery of it. And I think that is a pretty legit thing to do. But the whole point of an initiative roll is that everyone begins to act all at once. And we're trying to see who acts first. And when the party's trying to surrender, or not surrender, there might be a signal from the bandit leader to fire, but also that same signal might trigger someone to run into cover. And so there should be an advantage to establishing an ambush and being ready to attack somebody and having your arrows knocked and drawn. But it sort of undermines the concept of initiative a little bit. They had readied actions.
But they were holding them because we weren't like doing anything, and we never actually did do anything. So if he's like, if we're gonna do something, we should like roll in so that we can actually do it, so they can like start.
That's a good point.
But if
They're just holding their shot.
Their
what's
ready
that trigger
action is like if their trigger would be any aggressive movement or any sort of like anything other than surrender, anything that indicates you're not giving up. And so if someone is about to duck into cover, that triggers their shot. If someone draws a weapon, goes for a weapon, that triggers their shot.
Sure, but if someone's gonna duck under cover, the person ducking under cover is probably gonna be quicker than the person shooting the bow.
Very
If the
good point
person's
that he
casting
makes.
The spell, they're gonna get their spell off before the person shoots the bow, because they're the one like doing it immediately. They're at a disadvantage because they're literally holding their shot for us to do something.
That's true, and you are right next to cover. So I will give you 25% cover, which is a +2 to your AC. It's one of the very few times in 5e that you get a flat bonus is from cover and concealment. You are casting shield, which is hella important. It's a reaction that you take on your turn.
Not on your turn.
Which will increase your, put the spell in chat. It'll increase your AC by 5 to
Which
a total
doesn't matter.
of 17,
In this situation.
which is still not good enough because they rolled a
Yeah,
20.
I mean, like these are apparently the fucking like greatest
can
archers in the
hang on,
fucking.
hang on.
Actually,
He
hold
can
on.
choose not. He can look at the roll and then decide to shield. So really, there's no reason for him to use shield there.
Yeah.
'Cause he knows that it wouldn't help him.
Well, hold on, because that gets weird, right?
No,
If
that
there's-
is how it works. It's a reaction.
works?
Shield is a reaction to
it's
get
yeah,
a hit.
yeah.
When you
Uh-huh.
are hit by an attack, yeah. It's a weird
so
spell.
So don't waste a spell slot. Yeah, there's no
Yeah,
point.
I guess I'm not.
Yep.
I guess I'm just fucking dying. All right, cool.
Yep.
Let's hope they roll low.
Well, the first shot will take you to 1,
Deuces.
and the second shot will bring you to 0 because you can't
Yeah,
die.
Apparently,
like
I
that.
start walking towards them with my hands in the air.
And then hold on, we get 2 shots against Mr. Mooten here.
I duck and recover.
Yep, 16 and a 8.
Oh, the 16.
The 16 will hit because you got +2 to AC.
I didn't see the other one.
Yeah. The other one will wound you. And then there are 3 shots, surprisingly good archers, these suckers, at the tall boy.
Boy.
14, 20. So, just to go back a little bit, Roy has 8 HP. He takes 7, goes to 1. He takes 9, which would bring him to -8. At the time, I thought you had to exceed your HP in the negative to die, rather than go directly to your HP. And later, I looked it up, and it's actually, if you reach your HP as a negative number, you die. So, I misremembered and misinterpreted these rules. This probably should have actually just killed Roy right out. But I thought the rules were you had to go to greater than your negative HP. So small mistake on my part as a DM. I literally 1 point off. And my brain, I'm like, oh my god, it was 1 point off of death right there. But in retrospect, 21 and 12. I think those are all hits.
Those are all hits.
God damn, these guys are good.
Look at those.
Oh my god, those are
look
like
at those
max damage
rolls.
rolls.
Jesus Christ.
Neal team
Neal.
6.
19.
What am I on?
Looking
2
at
health?
those bandit,
Oh my god.
their damage is
Okay, Mr. Moon,
D6
did you
plus
update your-
1. So that's actually a 6, a 6, and a 4 on D6s. These are just about, these are 2 max damage rolls. This is a max damage roll. This is, I guess technically average rolls, but still, these are incredible damage rolls that
Character?
are coming up here.
Yeah, I put mine to say it 1 sec. There we go.
Holy.
And I think
It's unfortunate
was this
that they rolled
14,
even at
5 is 19. That's going to be his HP right away.
Natural 16 and 18 on their stealth checks to come up against you. Okay. Well, it's initiative time.
Oh, okay.
You
Well,
look like
I would
you're
argue that
surrendering.
Yeah.
they used their surprise round to talk to us,
Yeah,
so we just get to act freely in
We
this
should just
first
get back
round.
freely, I agree.
All right. I'll take it.
And that is the compromise here, is that the ambush did feel a little weird. The party had been talking to them for a little bit, and then the shots all fired at once. And then do we just roll into initiative? But like everybody's sort of moving at the same time. So I essentially, instead of, maybe the right way to do that would have just been to roll initiative. And instead, I said, they have readied action, so the actions go off, but then it feels weird to roll into initiative right afterwards. And so saying the party gets to act after the enemies get to act, and then we roll into initiative is sort of like an awkward middle ground, because I really did want the the threat of I've got all these archers ready to shoot you in an instant if you don't acquiesce to my demands, which is a good threat. It's a threat that you need to be able to have, is you're not in cover and these people are going to shoot you if you move or if you don't do what I say. And then it just felt necessary. That was a really good point that Vasher made.
I walk towards the enemy with my hands in the air. I guess on my turn.
It's just like
You're
the
gonna
big
walk- you're
first
just
fight
gonna-
that we had in Tides of Death. I was also knocked out for the entirety of that one, so good luck.
The healer's not going to heal the downed spellcaster. You're going to walk to the enemy, arms up.
I feel like thunder waving them in close range is going to be a better use of my last spell slot than healing.
Ooh,
Roy.
okay. Very
I'm
nice.
trying to remember. I can't find my initiative on my character.
Just the upper left corner of the screen. I gave you a
Oh,
button
right,
to
yeah.
solve your problems.
You're right. Sorry.
I can't even get to them without. Right?
Uh,
You only
you can't.
30 feet per round.
Right. If you dash
Oh,
at
yeah.
60.
We're about.
Yeah, we're super fucked, I think, actually.
Yeah, I think you rolled too well, Koibu.
Well, we don't
It's all right,
roll
I'm going to save the day.
Let's see. Probably should roll for all the bandit minions, not just one of them. But the party did get to take their turn. And did you all do the movements that you wanted on your turn?
No.
No, I haven't taken my action yet. I think upon seeing that, like, much damage, I think I have to surrender to survive here. Like, there's no way I'm taking these guys on, I think, at this point. So I'll say, okay, I yield. Just let me heal. Heal the wizard.
The paladin.
Heal the guy.
Excellent. Are you going to go before? You're still going to need to roll initiative, Roy, because you have to make death saving throws.
Oh, it gets scary with the
yeah.
death saves.
Yeah, I got you.
I'll make my way over to Roy, and I will use my final... I'll use 2 points of lay on hands to heal him.
I don't think those 2 points are his final points. I think he's still got a few more.
So he's on 2 health and up, right?
The 2 health
yeah,
is a
he's
bad
prone,
idea.
but
He
he's
should have just
alive.
used 1 point.
Okay.
Because the enemy does
Cassian,
minimum 2 damage on a hit. So.
Looking at the initiative order here, I also need not Emmerich. Oh man, Greenzerg to roll into initiative.
Oh, yeah.
You need
did?
your initiative for next round, by the way.
I thought I already rolled. But
Oh, it didn't show up. You did roll.
I sworn
Okay.
it did. 13.
Yeah.
I'm gonna dash to here, Koibu.
So on the first round, the enemy take their shots. The party quickly scurries.
And Mr. Mooten there, he got a little bit of movement to go into cover as they're shooting, and then he got a full 60 feet of movement to go there. I think he technically overmoved, but it's
to
fine.
cover by
It's
the big
fine.
rock. The cleric
We're trying to keep the game moving
dashes
smoothly.
with his hands up in the air towards
If players
the
are
enemy to
eking out a
surrender.
little advantage here or there, it's
Paladin
kind of fine.
runs over to the wounded wizard and heals the wounded wizard. And now we're at the top of the initiative order. And our bandit captain will take his horse,
all good,
his
Mooten.
camel, and is going to ride. He's going to go to the first. Well, no. He's going to go over
This battle
here.
is just
He'll, trot on
it's a real
down
nail biter.
towards the wizard and the paladin. A paladin could be a great
The
prize.
bandit here, the bandit leader here, is going for the prize, right? There's a guy on a horse. That's clearly the most valuable thing. So he's coming over to take his captive, who
This minion
had just
will
said,
ride
"Let
their
me
camel,
just heal the wizard."
with the knees, and
So he's
take
coming
a
over to get his
shot
prize.
towards you.
Real quick, am I at 1 or 2 health?
2.
2.
Mhm.
Because I went to -1, right?
We don't do
Or-
negatives. You get to 0 unless
Yep.
you're overkilled.
Okay.
Well, did he get overkilled?
No, you need to get more than your max HP.
Right,
and
so
he
this is
got
the mistake that I
literally 2
made.
Max HP. If 1 more point of damage, his character actually would have been fully dead. It was-
Is it not? Is it not twice your max HP you need to die? No.
It needs to be more than negative your max,
Oh,
and he
okay,
got to
yeah.
exactly negative his
My
max.
mistake. Should have
Oh,
killed
yes.
Roy right
I
there.
know. It gave me a heart attack when I saw the critical. The 6 will completely miss you, Cassian.
Good.
The next horseman, or camel archer, sees that you're surrendering and levels a bow in your direction, and will call out to you, "Old man, take a knee."
I drop down.
I know that the archers. I know that Steermere is going to go Thunderwave them, but the archers don't know that. At the same time, if an enemy is coming to surrender to you, you don't necessarily take them at face value, right? Well, the whole thing with the guy on the boat saying, "I can't trust you, it's going to be expensive because now I need to watch you while you're on the boat." The enemy is going to feel the same way. You don't just trust a random person who is surrendering, especially when half their team, well, one of their team members isn't necessarily surrendering. And so having the archer cover him with the bow as he approaches and tell him to get on his knees it's standard surrender protocol here. This one will do a similar thing. He'll ride to about here and take a shot at the hulking warrior So these guys
Wait.
are just getting into nice spots
Yeah.
to take a
Nick,
shot while they're still
you
staying
casting a
around
throw?
within vision of
my turn,
everyone.
I'm
We
going
don't
to,
want to
yeah.
run away too far.
they
We
not
want to
see that?
stay kind of close. There's
think
some
they're
weird
casting
terrain
that.
going on. We've
Yeah,
got this
it's not just a
situation
second
well in
Interesting.
hand.
Yeah.
We're just going to pepper them with a
so
couple of
dumb.
arrows.
Because with 6-second rounds, it's not like 1
Yeah,
minute
yeah, yeah.
rounds, so it makes more sense.
I agree.
Yep. You get hit for 3 by the arrow there, Mr. Mooten.
-3.
Yeah, minus 3 HP. This one will come sort of surrounding the old man, so he doesn't actually, pull any fast maneuvers. And Cassian Rin will take his turn. Yeah, that guy's also covering the old man who's
okay.
surrendering.
I'm going to
Makes sense.
Love dogs.
Keep an eye on the
I'm
guy.
gonna go here, and I'm gonna attack this guy.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I'm gonna go over here. I'm gonna attack this guy.
Excellent.
God, this battle is such a nail biter.
Something like that. Man.
Dogs.
And then here's the scimitar with the main hand.
Mm-hmm.
14.
Easy hit.
For 9?
These bandits have
Excellent.
11
you
AC.
almost killed a person in a single shot. The
And
scimitar
11
rips into the guy's
HP.
belly. Clothes
And
go
a
flying,
scimitar
blood
damage here of
begins to spill.
9 should
There's
be enough to make someone run pretty fast, and that was one of the things we wanted to go for. But Cassian, with his 2 attacks,
hit.
is just going
And
to slaughter
the
everything
archer goes
rather than
down,
letting
hits the
them
ground,
surrender.
dies.
I think the right
Didn't
strategic
stymie
move,
her.
if I'm going to backseat, would be to, I don't remember exactly
No,
where
you
he
just
was,
get
but if
an
you
action.
could, move to here,
So I
hit
can I still
once,
like
move
30
to
feet with another
here,
attack
Absolutely.
here,
You
but-
still have the rest of your
hit a
movement.
second time,
Can I
and
hit him
spread
from
his
that range?
damage out. I mean, he is action surging
Okay.
and
Yeah,
essentially
perfect.
doing
I'll
the
go over
same
here.
thing,
I'm gonna action surge,
Um,
and I'm gonna use my scimitar and attack again. 17
but he probably didn't have to do his
for 5.
action surge to do
That
it.
goes down to half HP.
Because all we got to do.
Stymir.
Oh, we haven't really. The party
okay.
hasn't really figured
In
this
this-
out yet.
in
But
this
the
moment,
idea
after,
is if you wound your enemies, they're probably going to run
Cassian is
away. If you
attacking
wound
this
wound
guy,
the
do
minions,
these
they're probably
people
going to run
move?
away.
Do they move their bows away from me?
And we just, unfortunately,
Or are
they
all
killed
pointing
the
their bows directly at
Azari
me, like,
before they got
well,
to
two
really
of them
wound
have
the
taken
Azari, and so we
heavy
haven't
wounds at bows
learned
at
the
you.
lesson that you can
Only two have
wound
gone.
instead of kill.
This one and this one.
You could also make the argument that killing people off the bat might be better for morale as well.
This is a tough spot. There's no way I
rather
can hit
than
3
you know,
here with this
if your
15 foot
allies
cube, I
are
can get 2, right?
dying, then you
can
might
get
also
2 and their
flee
camels,
rather
though.
than if they're getting wounded and
Yeah.
retreating. You could
Okay.
argue a lot of ways here.
Yeah, I'm gonna blast these 2 with Thunderwave, and I'm gonna use Channel Divinity to max the damage out at 60.
Okay.
Jesus.
It is what saving throw for them? Con?
Yeah,
Yeah.
can't.
So here is for the one on the top left. One on the next one over will save. And what is a camel's?
2d8, 16
Saving
damage.
throw.
So a failure will kill a
Plus
minion.
2.
A pass
on the
will
camel
do 8 damage, which will almost kill a minion.
1 fail and 1 pass. And camels
I think
have
Okay.
camels have
They take half damage, and if they fail, they're also pushed away 10 feet.
Excellent.
15
what was the full
HP. So
damage on
camel
this? It's-
failing will die.
16.
Camel passing will survive.
Okay, so you just obliterate one person and one camel entirely, just completely off the map. 16, right?
Yeah.
One will be taken almost to 0, and camels have 15 HP. They're going to be neutral creatures, though. And they take 8. Right.
And then I want to move.
Sure.
Oh,
So
but
I'm not
steer
surrounded
around.
here.
So brave.
they will release their shots. You cast a spell, they fire in reaction.
Fine.
Oh,
Ugh.
excellent shot for 3. And the other
Finally,
one,
some low damage.
10.
Don't
wanna
If
kill our
only
party
your
members.
knees-
He's still alive.
If only your knees weren't so bad. 7. That's
Oh
a
my
lot.
god.
Oh my god,
Yeah.
they're
That's
so
another
good.
max
And go ahead and
damage
take
on the
your
attack
movement.
die or on the damage die. That's 7 HP.
All right.
Can I get some cover here?
Absolutely
From
not.
whom?
These guys on the right.
No, this provides no cover to anybody on the right side.
Okay.
Okay. Basher. You came
And they're
over here to
also
heal
they're
this
horse
guy,
archers or
this
camel
kid,
archers, right?
this
They've got a lot of
annoying kid
mobility
who's
here,
still under your
so
protection.
trying to get
And
cover
it looks
from
like your
someone
cleric
who's
was
on
about
a
to
horse.
surrender, but you
It's pretty
see-
hard.
You can hear the thundering boom go off, and you can see your big hulking strong man like running full tilt into the archers who are peppering him with arrows. but you're only at 2 HP. And here's the bandit leader, right? You can even tell on the overlays or the tokens. These are bandit minions. This is the bandit. This is the real deal. What are you gonna do? Oh, Vasher.
Upon seeing my party actually fighting and winning, I'm going to charge that bandit leader as hard as I can.
Yes.
Oh, buddy. He's at like what, 1 HP, and he's gonna try and fight this guy?
We need that Swansea. Come on.
The bandit leader is a CR2 creature. He's trying to take him on by himself. It's insane.
All right, let's see here. Oh my fucking god, that is pathetic.
The scimitar goes wide. The bandit ducks underneath it as it hisses over his head.
Wait, I can't remember. Do you get anything for mounted combat?
Only against unmounted people.
He's mounted.
Oh, and he's mounted with a camel. Rip.
Right. Probably wouldn't. No,
attack?
I don't know.
Oh yeah, the horse should attack.
Only if I jump off it and tell it to act independently, and it hates something in particular.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. I don't know where the rules are that say that, but that is a great ruling, a great self-imposed ruling, because as we mentioned before, we don't want the horse to be someone that the enemies are targeting. We want the horse to be like a neutral thing that the enemies can consider as loot to capture.
Sink into you for 4.
Yeah.
I think that brings Steermer down to 3. Waystar, Roy, it's all going to hell in a handbasket.
We need a natural 20 here.
All right. I'm guessing I would probably just attack the closest target, aka whoever Vasher is fighting.
Bandit captain.
What are you back off?
Or the bandit, we should just call him.
Skip a little bit.
What are you going to attack him with, though? Feet.
Yeah.
What?
So close.
Roy's turns always take a long time.
Do more, and a little bit more of my spell first. And
I do. All right.
Slightly better than average.
11 points of damage as 3 missiles.
Magic Missile's a great spell.
Strike into the bandit captain there, the leader of this
Fantastic
group.
spell.
They poke holes all through his body and flesh.
All right, we're going to skip a little bit. Blah, blah, blah. Blah, blah, blah.
So with the tree and the mounted knight there, and if we look in...
This is actually the point that I wanted to talk about
It's
right
like
here.
he's got like 60 health.
Okay.
This bandit minion way over here on the side of the map sees the spell going off.
Right,
Sees
so this
the
one
magic missiles flying.
is going to try and
will
shoot at
take
Roy.
a shot with his short bow at the mage who's ducking behind a tree right now. You get a +2, I believe it is, to your AC from hiding behind the tree, which will bring your AC up to 14. But a 22 is so good.
So again, shield doesn't fucking matter.
Behind a horse.
Well, okay, actually, you're right. You're right. The horse there does add another layer of cover. And if we look in our handouts...
I think the horse in and of itself should provide 3/4 cover, because the horse is a pretty big object. And this comes up a little bit later where I make a bad ruling. But I think standing behind a horse should be 3/4 cover on its own. And then with the tree, that should bring you to full cover. I honestly think that Roy should probably be untargetable in this situation from this person. And I make a not so great ruling. However, I think by allowing Roy to be targeted here ends up being a good thing.
I do believe we'll see that multiple layers of things in front of you,
because I think
will
Roy
provide additional cover. So with the tree
I don't remember what his
and the
dex is.
mounted
Maybe
knight
it's not
there, that's at least that's 2 rows. That's +5 AC. So your AC goes from 12 to 17.
Never mind.
To 17. It's a 22 though. Even if I shield, I go to 20 and I still get hit, right?
Yep. A shield would bring you to 22, and it's actually still a hit. It's a lucky shot. It's a natural 19. It whizzes.
I do think he should be untargetable here, but if he hadn't targeted Roy, he would have targeted Vasher. So someone was going to go down with that shot.
Again.
Oh my god, dude.
Should have only used 1 point to heal him.
Oh
okay.
my god.
The bandit. Yeah, thank you. What are we going to do with him? Well, I think he will just At the what's your face?
Natural 20. You
Natural
fuck off.
20.
Look at
And
these
the paladin
rolls. I
drops
mean,
with
it's minimum damage, but it doesn't
literally
even
minimum
matter.
damage, but it's enough to bring you down.
Basher goes down,
The one
falls off
damage.
his
They're not,
horse.
just fight. If you're a minion and you want to live, you don't fight to the death. So they
So,
will flee a little
We're
bit.
seeing the
but not
minions
everyone.
retreating, like we talked about.
This one right here.
We do
will
have a
take a
morale
shot
check system in
at the
play,
best target
but
he's
we're
got,
also
which
sometimes going to
is-
say that
well,
certain minions are just
I
going
guess
to
this is a little bit of
route
cover.
right
This is
away.
a
Like
little bit of
one of your
cover.
guys and the
It's
horse
gonna go
gets
after the big
evaporated,
man.
and you, I'm sorry,
Not
one
the
guy
big
and his
man.
camel gets evaporated, and you and your camel are almost killed by a magical surprise attack.
3
That's a good
points.
reason just to automatically fail your morale and run. Sometimes we'll see morale checks, sometimes we'll see automatic fails, and it should be done in a situation where it feels like it's the most appropriate for the situation. And that will sometimes be difficult to
If they
adjudicate.
are shooting point blank, they have disadvantage, and if they move
Sure,
away,
I'm gonna sprint here.
okay.
That sprint's
And
clutch.
I'm going to second.
Because now
wind.
he's
Excellent.
in melee range
10
of
plus
2
2.
people.
8 HP
So they
back.
both have
Excellent.
disadvantage on
16,
shots against
and
him,
I
and
can
if they
attack,
move
so
away,
that's
they
a
either have to
Stymir.
disengage and lose their attack,
did the guy
or they
killed
have
here have a
to
weapon?
take an attack of opportunity.
He absolutely did. He dropped a scimitar in addition to the bow.
I would like to
I'm sorry,
charge.
it's a dagger. It's a dagger. I'm just looking at the character sheets now.
I'd like to charge this guy and pick up the dagger at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Charge doesn't have a mechanical bonus, but
Yeah,
you
yeah,
can
yeah.
grab the dagger and then run on over.
Yeah, I leap and attack at this guy with a dagger. Should I just roll my club?
No, I've just added a dagger to your sheet.
Oh, thank you, sir.
Oh,
Double
only
natural
Nick.
one.
Only
You literally
Nick
couldn't
could
make
do
up.
it.
What the fuck?
Look at them rolls. Look at them natural ones across the board. That's what, fourth
What is wrong
set
with
of
roll
ones
20?
today?
This is a great fight, guys. Vasher, you've fallen from your
That's
horse.
I-
Death saving
I think
throw.
I've rolled more ones than all other numbers put together so far.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
This is like my 7th one.
Mm-hmm.
Where is the? Ah, there it is. Okay, death save. Click.
Oh, my face is in front of
That's a
the
success.
rolls. Ooh.
All right.
I'll have to update
What does my voice do
the
on my turn?
overlay
This is my horseman, loyal
for
horse,
director's
sees me falling.
commentary to move my face
What
to a
should he
different
do?
spot because I
Well,
can see that I'm blocking the
We had
rolls.
said that your horse
it was
will
an
fight
old
if it doesn't
overlay
have
that
a
I did not
mount,
build
and
specifically
if
for
it
this.
hates something in particular. It is your loyal warhorse. What does it have in terms of combat? Hooves? I guess it
has
could
hooves.
turn and kick if it felt like the situation called for it. Which,
Horses notoriously don't like camels, so it's at least,
Yeah.
it's going to make an attempt.
all right, go ahead and hoof the camel or the bandit.
I swear to God, this horse better hit. Oh my
Natural
God.
20.
Nice.
Roll the
Fucking hell,
damage.
+6.
This fight is
Okay.
just an incredible fight.
That's actually 4d6 damage. That's insane.
Come on. That's double damage as well. How is it?
You
He's
can
saying
just
it's
click
46.
the
Do-
double.
do I
attack
double-
text next to the green 26, and that will roll the critical for you
Wait, how? Oh, wait, where do I click?
in chat.
It says attack.
In the
chat, yeah.
rolling box.
In the chat.
Mhm.
Oh,
16?
Ooh,
Did it-
mixed damage. 16 though. The first ones were double ones.
So unlucky.
Oh wow.
So good. Okay. Our next bandit is over here, and he's next to Stymir. And of course, you can't really take that shot very well. And so the bandit on the horse will begin to back away to get a shot on you.
And so the decision here is an interesting one. When you're this bandit, do you action disengage and run away, or do you take the attack of opportunity and move and shoot? It's a really good question. And either option is pretty legitimate in this situation. It's been a little bit too long for me to remember exactly why I picked the move and scoot, but looking at where the HP bars are, I think the logic at this point is that these guys are so badly injured, and all he's got is a dagger, and he's an old man, that we're gonna risk the attack because we're just going to be able to drop them right away. And one attack from a dagger is probably not that big of a deal. I think that's the logic at the time. But a disengage and move would have been equally legitimate. I don't know which is better for the players, because again, the player's not going to kill him here. And so the attack of opportunity might get some damage on the enemy. On the other hand, the disengage would essentially, your movement stops an enemy from taking an attack that round. So I don't know which one actually benefits the players in the long run. On the camel, I'm sorry.
Which not going to just attack me in melee?
No, he's an archer. I told you, these minions do not want to get up close and personal with. Also, if he shoots from point blank, he shoots at disadvantage to anyone. They are
14.
Great stab.
5 damage.
Out of 11 HP, he's at half. He might have to make a morale check on his turn.
Way away, and that will bring him to half hit points.
Yeah, actually, he should just keep running.
Just shy of half. Let's
True.
see about the wisdom save. 10 is good enough. He'll aim his short bow at you. Natural one. No, actually, after this, I made in between this session and the next one, or yeah, I think it's between this session and the next one, I made a macro that will roll saving throws, wisdom saves, morale saves for our enemies. And the DC of the morale save is modified by the percentage of HP that the enemy is missing. And so with the new macros that I made after this combat, that actually would have been a fail on a morale check. But also, I don't think he should have made a morale check right here. I think he should have made a morale check at the start of his next turn.
Unbelievable.
So, in the end, it's
Jeff.
the same.
Roy Waystar.
We need a natural 20 here.
Death
Come
saving throw.
Come on.
Yeah.
Let's see it.
Come
Come
on.
on. Come on.
Saving throw versus.
Come on.
Wait, where? Okay.
You're the 20 master, dude.
Is it just death saves? Just that
It's
button?
death save as text, yeah.
Every roll, every one I've rolled.
Okay,
That's
good.
That's a
20 for you.
success. That's good. That's good.
I'm not dead, I guess.
Not dead yet. 3 failures means you die. 3 successes mean you stabilize. Natural 1 is worth 2 failures. Natural 20 means you come back at 1 HP.
Yeah, easy. I'm nat 20 next turn, no problem.
Yeah. Sorry, if I had told you ahead of time, you probably would have taken. He did not bow. 10 is
It's a miss.
1 shy.
Yes.
Sails right over your head.
The tide is turning, Neal.
Okay.
The horse is going to kill the bandit leader.
Bandit leader. I think so.
That's up to you.
He's in combat with the horse. He's fighting it.
It just.
If
Come
I
on,
was
if this
fighting
was-
a monster and
Yes.
and I walked away from it, you would hit me.
Would the crocodile get an attack of opportunity?
Yes, it would.
There you go.
Horses bite. They got a lot of teeth.
It's called a war horse for a reason.
Right.
True.
Well, we're heading on over. We're gonna move, but we're not
Okay,
gonna be
roll
able
it.
to attack this round.
It's him. Kick him.
Kick
Do I
his
get
ass.
It's
An
not
opportunity
gonna.
attack?
Yeah, it does, but it's not gonna do good again.
Oh,
Is that a hit?
It actually does hit.
Nice.
unbelievable.
Big
So
money,
this
big
is
money.
that situation where the war horse as a fighting ally is tough. As long as it stays and defends Vasher's body, I think it's reasonable.
Big money.
We're owed
And
some
that's
big
essentially
dice,
what it does
too.
here.
Yes.
That's pretty good.
Good roll.
All right.
really good
the
roll.
bandit captain will get all the way up
2d6 plus
to the big
4,
warrior.
so 7, which is
not
3 and
quite
4.
dead
Actually, it's
yet.
at a very average roll.
No.
And this guy down here, the next minion, is at 3 out of 11 HP and is piecing out of the fight. He will go back to camp, and he's gone.
Yep.
The
Yep.
next bandit is this one right here, who is not getting next to this warrior at all, and is going to move away a little bit. Warrior, please take your
Josie.
attack of opportunity.
Fucking 20 him.
24
Yes. Oh, it's
Very
a
nice.
19.
for 9.
Oh,
See, now that
almost
the players
dead,
are doing
and
such
that
high
is
damage,
definitely,
which
you know
is
what?
Crazy.
I'm out.
They really
Cassian
should
ridden.
be disengaging
Double
at that
attack.
point. But it took a
Minotaur
round
on the
of
Bandit King.
that to realize
Attack number
that
one's
maybe
11, and
these
that's a miss.
randoms that they were
And the
ambushing are a little bit
offense.
stronger than they thought.
for 3.
Because after all, these are just
3 damage.
people
It's
with
not a lot.
sticks, like pieces of driftwood,
Steer
walking
mirror.
along the beach.
This is a spicy situation.
Yeah, it is.
What are you gonna do here? You're only at 3 hit points. Do you have any spells?
Nah, I'm out of spell slots.
Hmm.
I move behind this camel to give cover from the other one, and we'll attack this guy.
Okay. Roll the hit.
It's 11.
Hits.
Oh,
11 AC. That's what you need to roll.
3 damage.
They're called minions for a reason. Excellent. Vasher. This is where your natural 20 comes in, buddy.
Absolutely. I'm about to stand up. Hang on.
Let me just get to my feet real quick.
Don't throw your back. Oh!
Oh my god.
He's done it! He's a
Unbelievable.
fucking bad man!
The first
Fucking unreal.
of the natural
Yes!
20s. I think this
One
session
hit
has
point.
multiple ones.
You have to use half your movement to stand, but you're there.
I use I'm trying to think in my head.
I didn't hear no bell.
Let me just look. How much healing how many spells have I used? I've used one, so I have one still.
What
How
spell
much does
did you
Cure
cast?
Wounds do? I cast Shield of Faith in the first fight.
Ah, right. Okay.
I'm trying to see how much does Cure Wounds heal.
A lot of
That I
saves.
put time
Skip,
back.
skip.
All right. This bandit was wounded last round, but passed his morale check.
Did he just heal himself for... I think he did. He healed himself for 3.
He's got a great shot at the warrior. I'm gonna take a shot
Unlucky.
at him.
Super unlucky.
15 will do. 7 points of damage to the big
Whoa.
man.
Nice roll.
That
All right,
is
Roy
Cassian being
Waystar.
wounded for another 7 points.
That's safe. Come on.
Come on, we need
Come on.
another natural 20.
Come on.
Get back
Come
up.
on.
Do it for the YouTube short.
Yeah.
Damn.
Okay.
That
That would've been cool.
success. The old move. Okay, well, it's a
Just not
12. It's a
perfect.
regular hit.
3 damage.
3, which brings him to wisdom saving throw area to see if he breaks or not.
That's another guy
14
retreating,
is
being
not
hit on his not retreating,
That one's
moving
going for
away.
you.
That's another enemy moving away to make a shot. Steermere getting an attack. Guy shooting at Steermere, missing. The rolls are slightly changing in the party's favor.
Right, Nick.
There's not much else to say about this battle. It's just it's a really good one.
As Cassian's fighting the Bandit King and he thinks he's about to die, he'll yell out to Steermere, "Protect Roy, Steermere."
Okay, the scimitar
course.
comes down on you. Whoosh! 11.
It's a hit.
7 points of damage.
He lives.
But wait, because he's a real bandit. He gets 2 attacks. He would have done it on the other guy, except the other guy went down with 1 attack.
Bro.
And so he takes
No,
his second
He's gonna miss
attack.
though.
Whoosh.
Oh
And-
no!
And you drop to 0 down.
You gotta
Next
smite him, dude.
person, this one was already leaving and now gets to leave the map. Next bandit is on his way leaving, leaves
You know,
the
there are
map.
multiple times in this battle where it feels like
Cassian,
the
I think
game
it's
is
actually your
over.
turn.
And when, as a DM,
Nat
If-
20.
when you're facing what could be the end of the game for your party, especially when it's the first session, you have sometimes a temptation to fudge the dice or make the enemies make bad decisions, or there's an innate desire to, you know, save the party.
So many archers.
But if you respect the party,
These 2 aren't retreating, right?
and if you respect the game, and everyone's fun, the best thing you can do for them is give them a good death by not pulling your punches. Because if you pull your punches
think
and they die, then it's
sprint.
like the shittiest death in the world.
Dash.
And the bandit leader had only made 1 attack
Around the
against
side of this.
Vasher. I didn't have to reveal that he could make 2 or 3 melee attacks.
It is ass.
The man makes 3 melee attacks,
actually gonna
2
go
with
off
the
the horse.
scimitar, or makes
And I'm
2
gonna
ranged
use
attacks.
one
That's a
last
weird
healing point.
wording on that
I've got 2
multi-attack.
more lay on hands, and use
But
one more on Roy to wake him back up.
we didn't pull any punches. We had the bandit captain make all all two attacks, because we respect the party and we respect the game. And if they're gonna die, they're gonna die. And we're not going to like remove abilities from characters partway through the battle. We're gonna let the abilities be there. And if the party's gonna die, then the party's gonna die. That's the way you got to do it.
You have some movement left, right? How much does it take to mount and dismount?
For most people, it's half your movement speed because I'm a mounted
I think the bandit originally had one ability, and then I modified its abilities, and so the text got all wonky. But it should be the bandit makes 2 melee attacks. The bandit makes 2 attacks with a scimitar or 2 ranged attacks with his daggers. I don't know.
Using the horse as a shield. I don't know.
It's badly worded, but he gets 2 attacks
so
per
you're
round.
using
Is
the
what we're
horse's
saying.
cover. You're not laying on the ground, which would give them disadvantage to hit you. You're trying to use the like horse's torso as body.
Oh, if I can lay on the ground, I'm laying on the ground. If that makes
Laying on the ground gives you disadvantage. The horse gives you that 3/4 cover plus 5 to AC.
It's about equivalent, I think.
Right. Yeah. I'll stay standing then.
Okay. Excellent. That's Vasher's turn. Bandit minion. Gonna move over here. That's as far as he can move and still get a shot. Steerman, are you here or are you here?
I'm there where he is now. Yeah. I mean, I'm hiding behind the rock. Yeah.
That's what I thought. That's why I bothered to ask, because looks like you were trying to get cover from people. So I will say that's 3/4 cover as you're behind the rock. You don't know which way he's gonna come out until it's too late, and the arrow shot will go completely missing.
Nice. Okay.
Roy Waystar, you are at 1 hit point. You wake up for the 3rd time this session.
Okay. Okay. Let me. Roy needs a second to take in. I guess I'm already in decent cover. I don't actually need to move anywhere.
But you do need to get to your feet to cast your spell.
Yes, I will do that.
You've got me and the horse between you, eating arrows as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm getting up.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna roll a nat 20. Don't worry about me.
Nice.
Okay. Who do I want to attack is the question. I guess like probably
Roy's turns take a little while.
It looks like
Magic
now that
missiles, the bandit captain again, almost kills him, but not quite.
Our bandit minion is done.
Bandit minion fails a morale save.
And he will come round the corner.
Full bandit makes a morale save, it looks like.
Yeah, mages. Your daughter
stands up.
And Cassian nat 20 his death save.
No, it takes you 15 feet of movement to get to him.
15 feet to get up.
Reminder that he also rolled a 19 on this last round.
Cassian stands back up. He's up at 1. He yells out, "I didn't hear no bell." And let me think. 15 feet. Can't attack him here?
Yep, that's the same. That's a square.
Here you go. 2 scimitar attacks. 10.
Miss.
And a 23.
Hit.
Boom.
Nice.
For 2.
Oh,
2 damage.
Not enough to kill him, but enough to badly wound him. Steermere, the bandit leader, is coming for you.
What does dodge do?
Disadvantage on attacks against him.
Is he armored?
No.
Alright, fuck it.
Oh, Steermere.
Let's fucking go.
Oh,
20.
It's not going to be good enough.
4 damage.
4 points of damage.
Fucking hit me back, I dare you.
Vasher.
Seeing that I no longer need to protect him from archers, I'll hop back up on my horse.
That's 5.
And the horse. It depends on how you want to do the mounted combat rules. Does the horse have its own turn right after or before me, or does it move on my turn?
It moves on your turn. You are controlling your horse. You use your movement to make the horse move.
So we're not doing the thing where the horse has its own action, where it can like disengage and
No. The horse is an extension of your body. But it would be an interesting idea to give the horse its own movement and everything, and its own turn, and its own disengage. And I think if it were an intelligent creature with whom you were telepathically communicating, and it were working with you, you could argue that. But when you are the one issuing commands physically to your steed, then it should take commands on your turn. The interesting part here comes when your horse you were unmounted for a while, and the horse started its own turn, and then you mounted it. So, like, let's say your horse and you are on separate turns at the beginning of combat, and you call your horse to you on your turn, and on the horse's turn it moves towards you, and then on your turn you hop on the horse, and now it takes your movement to move it, so the horse gets its turn, and then one initiative tick later it gets movement on your turn, and then a whole round goes by, and you might end up with a situation where the horse technically gets to double move, and that is just a really awkward inflection point. Also, similarly, at what point when you dismount your horse does it get its own initiative roll? Should it get it right away? Should it always move on your turn? Should the two of you always share an initiative? I'm not quite sure how to navigate the horse's own initiative roll, but we'll get there eventually. But you do have the horse's movement, which is 50, instead of your own movement, which is 30.
Oh, wait, Neal, I had disadvantage. I need to make another roll.
Oh, you did. Yes, I can't believe I forgot that. Oh, thank God. All right. Woo. I had just literally said you had disadvantage too, but I was so caught up in the moment.
All right.
Doesn't matter. He dies when he attacks me.
Oh, true. I forgot about that.
And no way he kills me, so like outright.
You can use your action to make your horse dash if you want.
Does he still get his attack if his horse dashes?
Because it's his action. He's like, grips the reins with both hands and like, giddy up.
So I right click. I can get to here, say. I tell you what, I'm going to dash to flank this guy.
Ooh. One of these, huh?
Yep.
Alrighty. Bandit minion next to the big guy. 4 HP. I don't really know how you disengage from a camel. There's no more like, I'm going to move and shoot, so I'm saving my action. This is pure, like, survival.
Yeah, the bandits at this point really know that they can't just walk away.
Disengage, I suppose, and book it off screen.
No attack of opportunity?
Nope.
Because he's cool.
Disengaged.
Roy, where's
The guy left.
out there?
I think Roy's gonna fucking cower behind this tree.
This moment right here, Roy cowering. Because right now, if we look at the party, everybody's at like one-shot range. Roy's at 1 HP, Cassian's at 1 HP, Steermir's at 4 HP, Vasher's at 4 HP. Steermir is within one-shot range as well. And the bandit leader has 13 AC and gets 2 attacks in a round. And so in theory, the bandit leader could easily wipe the party right now. He could drop Steermir in one round, in one attack, drop Vasher in another attack, and then by the time anyone else gets to him, like this is a very legitimate threat that the party is facing. Or at the very least, he could knock people down who then couldn't make death saves. Roy's decision to cower here, in retrospect, when you know that the party is going to win, seems not so bad, but in the moment is actually extremely risky.
The bandit
He's in a desert, not about to run behind a rock to fucking fight. He
into the old man.
I use Wrath of the Storm to rebuke him with thunder damage. As he strikes me, lightning crackles around from the wound and, like, shocks him or whatever. So it does 2d8 damage, and he gets a save.
For half or for none?
For half. 7. Fuck, he's gonna live.
Damn
it.
Just like the dress
For
saves. Oh,
his mount using his multi-attack. He's gonna bring his scimitar down on Vasher.
Please.
Yep.
This guy's having his own moments here.
Jesus.
Yep. Vasher slides off the horse.
God, no, Roy! You're the only one.
Roy. Cassian
Yeah,
Ring.
Cassian, come on.
Cassian will charge and attack, and he will yell, "Roy, find your courage!" And he's gonna attack with his scimitar.
Oh
His
god,
main
I love
hand.
playing with Moon.
Come on.
20
Yes! Yes!
for 7,
Unbelievable.
and his offhand
Oh my god.
Get
for
him!
3.
You're not gonna
That's
believe
it.
me. You're not gonna believe me.
One.
Get 4 hit points.
No.
This is one of those moments where if we really wanted the party to survive, we just would have pretended he had 3 hit points and it would have been over. But you gotta respect your party, and you gotta respect the game, all right? If the party's gonna die, the party's gonna die, and you gotta give it to them the whole way. It would have been, there's no way the party could count the pixels on the HP bar to know that I was lying if I had said that he only had 3 hit points remaining. But you gotta let the dice do what they're gonna do. Steermere. This is how you establish trust with your players.
I'm dead. Oh, death save.
That's save.
Come on, get a 20.
Fuck. Fuck yeah.
One
obviously.
failure. We're gonna have to start talking about these failures. This is the first failed death save. We'll get to it later.
Vasher.
Death save stay with you until
Put
you
two
finish a
on.
long rest is what
My
we're gonna
horse
say.
didn't hear no bell.
Vasher fails one as well. I suppose your horse did get an attack last time, and it does make sense for him to kick it.
All right, let's see.
Miss.
God.
Missed.
Roy Waystar, you hear the call.
Yep. Okay. Let's fucking do it. I don't think he's in line of fire right now. Right.
Cassian. Your 2 friends are nearby. They're both dying.
Cassian
So the bandit
thinks
leader's
I'm
down.
Either of them rolls a natural 1 on their death saves. They die.
Oh
You
my
gotta
God.
save Nick.
So this is a tough situation here, right? The party, there are 2 people who have both failed 1 death save. One of them is Nick. So you know he's going to roll a 1. And Cassian has to decide who he wants to save. I'm going to just back it up for a moment. Your 2 friends are nearby. They're both dying.
Cassian thinks for a moment.
Either of them rolls a natural 1 on their death saves. They die.
Oh
You
my
gotta
God.
save Nick.
You've got to save me.
Cassian looks. He looks at the cleric, and he looks at the paladin,
The
and
noble
he makes a
paladin,
hard choice.
the asshole cleric.
Saves the paladin.
Fucking dick.
He. What do you want? What do you want for this?
Nothing. It's
Just automatic.
I think is it automatic to bind wounds or is it a DC 10 medicine
Yeah.
check?
No, I think it is automatic in 5e, isn't it?
No way. It should be a medicine check, right?
The closest mundane action would be a medicine check to stabilize someone who's at 0 HP. I think it's a DC 10.
Okay.
Yeah, that's close
Is
enough.
that right?
I think that that's how it should be.
Sounds right, yeah. Oh, fuck me.
Oh, Cassian,
And you
buddy.
get 1 per
He
person.
rolls an 8.
I think you can try round after round. I think in this
There's my
round,
one
your
try.
failure is because you don't have any bandages, and so you're doing your best to shred like your loincloth and patch his wounds.
Okay.
To pick the most
Go, Nick.
disgusting
It
thing
was
to bandage.
really nice
to
playing with you. I'm looking
I
forward
really-
to the
Bandage
next
wounds.
character.
This right here is an important. This. I'm gonna back it up for a moment. What I'm saying here is actually quite clutch.
Like your loincloth and
this
patch his
part.
wounds.
This part.
Okay. Go, Nick.
Zerg, it was really nice playing with you. I'm looking
I
forward to
really-
the next character that you're gonna make.
His character might die here, and we have to engage with it, right? We have to prep the ground for in case he dies. We could say things like, I really hope you roll this. I really hope you roll a 20. Really hope you pass. Or we could go the opposite route and be like, I really hope you lose. You know, here comes the natural 1. But whatever you're doing, you've got to acknowledge that the death is here, or the availability for death is here, and get ready for it. Because when a character dies out of the blue, it's not as satisfying. But when you build it up a little bit and everyone has a moment to like get ready for it, it's an easier pill to swallow. So saying to your player, I really enjoyed playing with you, I can't wait to see your next character, helps sell the fact to them that a bad roll here really does mean character death, and that there's not some other ploy that's coming out.
I already know that I'm going to roll a 1. I already know. Okay.
2. It's another 4.
Man.
Basher, I really liked your paladin. You can play the horse next time.
If I die here, can I be the horse?
You can be the horse.
Okay.
Passes
Okay.
with an 11.
Oh my
Roy.
god.
9. Cassian
I'm
passes
really
his
glad you
medicine
didn't at least die
check,
to a 1,
bandages
Nick. You know, it would be
the paladin.
Yes!
There you go.
Yes!
It would be die to a 1, Nick. You know, it would be. I'm really glad you didn't at least die to a 1, Nick. You know, it would be.
Oh, I can still roll a 1 now, though.
You can,
if
but it
you
wouldn't
want.
be quite the same. You know, it'll be.
You're hitting in
Got a
20.
45%
Yes!
chance of death
There you
here.
go.
He
Yes!
passes the save. Anyway, then the
Attempt
party
better than-
bandages him up, and that's pretty much it. And that will wrap us up for our first session of Save or Die. There might be some extra chatter at the very end. So all in all, the point of this session was to introduce our party to the mechanics of 5th edition, to introduce them to a new world in which things felt weird and alien and uncomfortable, and to get them sort of engaged with the idea of we're here to save good King Arnold. And it's not just like here's a quest, it's here's a quest and here's why you want to do it, because the slavery thing is pretty shitty, this land is kind of weird, and we're the only survivors, and it's up to us to do it, and oh yeah, good King Arnold seems pretty good now that we're here. We did get a pretty close combat, an extremely close combat, and we got to learn a little bit of, you know, new peoples and new worlds things coming along, and I think this was a really good first session. Between the first session and the second, we fixed some overlay issues, or we adjust some overlay issues. We try and work out some other technical problems with the stinger, and by the time we hit the third session, I think the overlays are like in their final form. The hit points and the HP bars are larger, and more readable for players, for viewers, and some mechanical kinks get worked out in the next couple of sessions. There was some good role playing in this session, but there was also a lot more combat than maybe we were expecting. Some combat that got drawn out a little bit longer necessarily than we were expecting. But yeah, I was pretty satisfied with this. I think it was a really good introduction. And then we normally have a post-game chatter on the Patreon, the Save or Die Patreon. So if you go to patreon.com/saveordie or something like that, you can, hop in for the after shows. Yeah. So that'll wrap us up for our director's commentary for this. We will hopefully be doing more director's commentary for all the other episodes. But right now, I have to go prepare for our 5th episode of the Lazarus Expedition, which starts in about 30 minutes. So I'm going to take off. Thanks for hanging out and watching. And I will be I'm going to be... The VOD for this won't be available, is what I'm going to say. So, more details on that to come later. Bye-bye.